Hello friends, welcome to Universe of Naruto_X. If you love Naruto what if stories and anime explanations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin today's story. This was it. All the work, time, and effort had all gone to waste. Nar and Sakura were caught, both in the middle of the sound base. They had a huge horrible battle with the ninja of the village along with their leader, Orochimaru. They seemed to have been winning for quite some time, but it's often said that quantity is better than quality. Even the Kale could not save them from their doomed venture. Both were tied down, for they were to be executed in the middle of the Sound Village. Hundreds gathered around to watch as two of their strongest enemies were about to die. Well, Naruto sighed as he looked up into the face of his executioner. I hope you live well, Sasaki. He looked over to his side where Sakura was tied in the same way he was. Their heads rested against a piece of wood, ready to be sliced within a few minutes. Sakura-chan, I'm sorry. Her eyes softened as they looked over at Nar. She wanted to say something that would increase his spirits, but both of them were exhausted and were about to be killed by their friend. No, Nar, I'm sorry, she muttered sadly. Sasaki just looked with a cold look. I shouldn't have come here without Sununade and Jera to back us up. I was just so happy to see Sasuke again. She felt a few tears begin to sting her eyes, but quickly blinked a couple of times, preventing them from coming out. Orochimaru came up as they stopped talking. He had an evil smirk on his face and said, Naruto and Sakura, I would like to thank the both of you for taking out so many Akatsuki agents for me. With their numbers weakened so much, they are hardly considered a threat now. He looked to Sasuke and continued, Sasuke was able to kill Itachi because of you two and is going to give me his body willingly. Now, before that, I will enjoy watching as he kills two people who still consider him a friend. Two so much like my horrible teammates from before. Orochimaru growled as he then said, Sasuke, you may continue whenever you wish. Orochimaru went over to Sasuke's side and saw both Naruto and Sakura look up sorrowfully at their lost friend. Sakura, before we die, I have one last thing to say, Naruto muttered as he looked over to her. I love you. He turned his head back to Sasuke, not wanting to see her reaction. All he wanted to do was to get out those words to the one he loved before he was to die. Nar, Sakura whispered, I. She looked down at the ground. I love you, too. She closed her eyes and tears began to seep through. Nar looked over at her in disbelief. Damn it, I hate how bittersweet it is right now. I finally know she loves me, but I'm about to die. Just great. He sighed and grinned over to her. Thanks. Sasaki watched on. It seemed as though he thought little of what everyone said, but inside he was having a huge debate. Kill them, Sasake's inner self said. He was about to begin to raise his sword when another voice from deeper inside his conscience spoke up. Hell no, they're my friends. But I have no more purpose in life. I killed Itachi and Orochimaru is going to take my body. Sasaki responded to the voice. Wait, he had a sudden realization. I can barely remember. A jutsu that may get us out of this, but it requires too much chakra. If we do it together, even I don't know. Orochimaru was growing impatient. Sasaki, kill them now. When Sasaki didn't respond in any way, his features twisted in anger. Damn brat, listen to me. Kill them now. Kill them again. His conscience tried to say, no. He responded back to it. Kill him. He inwardly sighed. Damn it. What do I do? Sasaki grabbed the blade of his sword from his belt and pulled it out slowly and raised it in the air. Both Naruto and Sakura looked on knowing this was their end. Both told each other their feelings, yet their only regret was that Sasaki would not see the light. Orochimaru smiled as the blade slowly came up, but his happy expression quickly turned into shock as Sasaki swung the blade in the circular fashion and stabbed him right in the chest. The blade's poisons went into his body and began to mix with his blood. And as Sasaki pulled the blade out, the man fell to the ground and blood flew out of his mouth. How could you? You damn brat! He gasped out, obviously in huge amounts of pain. He fell down, both his hands going into the hole in his chest. He screamed as loud as he could before he blacked out. All the hundreds of ninja watching, we stunned by the move. Sasaki cut both Naruto and Sakura free and said, I'm sorry, guys. I shouldn't have come to this bastard for help. He turned his head and spit on the soon-to-be corpse of his once mentor. He looked around at all the people getting prepared to fight them, even though the three standing at that moment could be considered the three strongest people alive. Two were completely exhausted, and one could not fight off hundreds, if not thousands. Sasuke, Naruto growled. He looked up, rage evident in his face. That's all you have to say. We nearly died trying to save you countless times. And that snake bastard was always a step ahead of us and found a way to evade us. Then when you finally turn back into all light and happy Sasaki, all you have to say is sorry. Sasaki looked at him for a moment before saying, yeah, pretty much. Before they both could argue longer, Sakura smacked both of them across the head and pointed to the angry crowd of ninja around them. Guys, we got out of one situation, but we're not going to get out of this one. Naruto sighed and nodded. At least we managed to kill Orochimaru then. And Sakura admitted she loves me. He smiled goofily. Sakura blushed and punched him in the head and said, I thought we were going to die. I didn't want to leave you in the dark. So, you'd only have told me if we were about to die in some other situation. Nar asked slightly confused. So, does that mean you wouldn't have told me in the near future if we were to succeed here? Sakura didn't know how to respond to that. Just get the fact that I love you down. It's not like we're going to live much longer to advance our relationship. True to her words, the enemy ninja all pulled out their kunai and other weapons and prepared to attack. Sasuke started a very long sequence of hand seals and yelled, Nar, Sakura, grab onto my shoulders. Naruto and Sakura hesitated before both of them grabbed a hold of his shoulders. Shortly after this, a purple-colored chakra came up around the trio and covered them all. Within seconds, they three that were there vanished from the sight of all the ninja advancing. Kabuto ran up to Orochimaru, who slowly regaining his conscious and blood flowed freely from his mouth. Kabuto, he muttered silently, that is the forbidden jutsu that was in the scroll I made. He must have gotten to it. While I wasn't looking, he coughed a couple of times. Do you remember the technique that he used? Kabuto scanned his memory and replied, yes, Orochimaru-sama, a time travel jutsu. It requires vast amount of chakra, more than both of us are capable of, though. I'd be very surprised if those three made it. We're going to use it. Orochimaru coughed out more blood. Well, just borrow these guys' chakra, he said as he let a sinister smile grace his face. Kabuto snickered a little and prepared the hand seals. He did it fast enough so that Orochimaru wouldn't die. When he finished, he used the purple chakra surrounding them to form a hand shape and go cover all the rest as a sort of tribute to the chakra. Suddenly, they all disappeared. The village of the sound was now completely empty. Konoha in a park. It was late at night. All the lights within the village were off. Besides, the night lamps set up around the town. The wind softly blew over the treetops, making a nice calming sound. Suddenly, the wind picked up quickly and began to circle around one particular spot. A dark purple chakra sphere surrounded the spot, and in an instant, 3 children fell onto the ground. Damn it! What did you do? Asked a groggy Naruto as he attempted to lift himself off the ground. He only failed and fell back on his butt. He stopped talking when he heard what his voice sounded like. Sasaki didn't reply. He opened his eyes and closed them again. He had to adjust to the darkness. For now, he could see nothing. He couldn't see their expressions, but could feel them looking in his direction. His voice sounded so small compared to what it was only minutes before. You brought us back in time, Sakura said in a small voice as well. From how we speak, I'd say we're 9-10 years old or so. She stood up and said, so, we're back before we graduated from the academy. It was complete silence before Naruto exploded. What? It sounded almost comical in his young age, but the matter at hand was too important to notice those kinds of things. You brought us back. After we killed the bastard and pretty much all of Akatsuki, we put the whole village in danger again. Sasaki was silent. Sakura was for a moment too before saying, do you think we should look around now? It's not like we can go back to the future to prevent ourselves from going into the past. Sasaki and Naruto both grunted in agreement, and the three stood up. Their clothes all were way too oversized for them all. They all managed to at least have their shirts covered down to their knees. This sucks, Naruto sighed. All the recognition I earned went down the drain as soon as we came here. He sighed once more. Damn it, it's going to take another 9 years to regain it all. I don't know, Naruto. We have all our knowledge from before and all the chakra as well, and the only thing we have to do now is get our bodies to relearn how to control it. Sasaki mentioned as the trio got out of the park and wandered onto a road and walked and only spoke in whispers so ninja or villagers couldn't hear what they were saying. I don't understand, though. The technique usually requires a tribute of large amounts of chakra. Usually, it would begin to drain out chakra capabilities and make us have very small amounts, but I offered it a large amount to come back so far. Nar responded. Kobe Sakura grabbed his hand and smiled at him, thought slightly blushing herself and nodded towards him. This action, though, brought her now long hair into her face, and she used her free hand to get it all behind her head again. Naruto smiled towards the girl and snickered as she tried to fix her hair. Not used to having long hair again. He asked. Not really. She sounded slightly annoyed. Sasaki looked over to both of them and laughed a little before getting serious. This is a new timeline. Whatever you do will be written in history as how it is, and you cannot back up onto the old timeline we came from. That doesn't exist anymore. He looked serious and said, Sakura, if you start doing this with Naruto in public, then you cannot say to people you've been through many things together. Sakura nodded in thought. Naruto sighed and was about to remove his hand before Sakura gripped it tighter and said, so what? Ino Pig can have you to herself for all I care. Naruto looked shocked and Sasuke smirked and said, okay, now that we have your relationship down, we need to figure out what we're going to do with the amount of chakra we have. We can all easily outrank an Ambu agent easily with how much we have. However, he looked around and their faces were blushing from his earlier comment and then turned serious as it traveled to chakra. However, we can't let people know we have so much they'll question us and even think we're spies. Naruto sighed as he spoke this. Both gave him shocked looks. What? I am not an idiot. I could see where Sasuke was going with that. Sakura sighed and said, so, what are we going to do about it? Should we go speak to Sue? She stopped mid-sentence. I mean, Serbia-sama. Not tonight. Sasaki sighed. Here, I'll let both of you stay here tonight. He motioned his hands to the Uchiha district that Sasuke led them into. My house is over here. He led them through the place. Throughout the whole trip, Naruto and Sakura both felt unnerved by the place. This is where so many were ruthlessly slaughtered that night 3 years ago. Naruto shuddered and Sakura leaned against him. Once Sasaki led them to his house, he closed the front door and behind them was a hallway. At the end of the hallway to the left is the living room. We can sleep in there for tonight, Sasaki said as walked along with his friends. He had not been here for almost 6 years. It brought way too many unpleasant memories for the child. He shook his head of the thoughts. I can't think of those right now. He then passed the hallway that led to where both his mother and father were killed. He felt very uneasy at that moment. Sasaki, no offense, but this place really gives me the creeps. Nar chirped up from behind the boy. He looked around sadly and nodded. Yeah, unfortunately, it also frightens me somewhat. He turned back around, but felt Sakura and Nar both put a hand on each of his shoulders. Sakura was the first to speak. Sasaki, you don't have to go through all this torture alone. Naruto nodded and said, we are friends. We'll help in any way we can. Sasaki smiled. Yes, I know, I can trust both of you. I don't understand how both of you can forgive me so easily, though. He never felt like this. He always tried his best to hide his emotions that he had been unfamiliar to them. He had, after all, killed them for almost 15 years. He felt a tear come down his eye. Happiness, he muttered. His friends looked at him with a quizzical look and he shook his head. It's nothing, he assured them. He opened the door to the room he had been leading them to and vaguely remembered a light switch to his left. He clicked it on and proceeded to enter the room. Once the three sat themselves down, Nar started the conversation. Sasuke, are you going to go to that snake freak again this time? No, he said with a growl. No way in hell am I going back to that bastard. Naruto sighed and said, good, because if you did this time, I'd seriously kick you at the valley. As if, Sasaki snorted. The three of them all sat around a small table in the middle of the room. There was a large couch on one side and a small chair on the other. A fireplace was over to the side, which looked like it hadn't been used in years, and the light was right above them all. Nar and Sakura both got on the couch while Sasuke sat on the chair. Okay, Naruto Sakura, we obviously have to hide our power from our classmates. And tomorrow morning, first thing we'll do is go speak to the Hokage about this. After classes, we need to learn how to regain control of our chakra. We barely are even touching it right now. We've been in the academy for almost 3 years now. He motioned to a calendar he had on the wall. According to that, which I update daily, we're all 9 years old. They all nodded. Okay. He then yawned. Let's get some rest for now. Actually, I am beat. Nar sighed as he grabbed a blanket that hung over the top of the couch and wrapped himself in it. There was no argument from either Sakura or Sasaki. Sakura went next to Nar and wrapped herself in one as well. Sasaki watched his friend sleep. I do not know why, but thank you for accepting me again, Nar. Sakura, I promise I will do everything in my power to help us succeed this time around. With that declaration, Sasaki pulled a blanket over himself and attempted to sleep. Thankfully, sleep actually came blissfully quick for the young. It's always easier to sleep when friends are close by. The next morning, the trio woke up quite early. The sun was not up and thus it made them all agree that it was definitely before 6 o'clock in the morning. Sasaki luckily had clothes laying around for his friends to wear. Unfortunately, they were Uchiha clothes. Sasaki wore what he used to wear those days, an oversized shirt and white shorts. Naruto wore a white shirt with an Uchiha crest on the back and the white shorts Sasaki wore. Sakura, on the other hand, wore a light blue oversized shirt like Sasaki with the Uchiha crest again on the back and some shorts as well. You have a huge variety in clothes, Sasaki, Naruto muttered, sarcasm dripping from his voice. At least I had something that would fit your small body. Sasaki sighed with Sakura giggling a little. Hey, in 5 years I'll be taller than both of you. He shouted, pointing his finger towards both of them. His stomach grumbled and he said, hey, so you guys want to go get ramen really quick? Sakura sighed and said, sure. Sasaki nodded his head too. Afterwards, we have to go tell the Hokage Aikyu ramen bar. Oh man, it has been weeks since I have had this stuff. Naruto said in a singing voice as he slurped up the noodles and had an increasing stack of bowls next to him. Both Sasaki and Sakura looked on with some interest, both having similar thoughts. How can he do that? Where does it all go? Despite these thoughts, they politely didn't interfere with Naruto's eating habit. So, Nar, who are your new friends? Tuki, the owner of the stall, asked. Nar stopped eating momentarily and turned to them both and said, this guy here is Uchiha Sasaki. He's my best friend. Sasuke waved from Naruto's left. This girl here though is. He was interrupted when Sakura said, I'm his girlfriend, Haruno Sakura. She said with a satisfied smile on, I wanted to say that. He sighed dejectedly, old man, are you alright? Tuki got out of his shock and said, aren't you too young to have a girlfriend? Nar laughed, you never too young. If I use the child's logic, then you can never be too old either. The man thought to himself. A huge smile appeared on his face. I'm glad for you, Nar. Nar gave him his thanks and left him the money. The children left the place shortly after that, but it didn't take long for trouble to set in. Nar sighed as he saw all the glares he was receiving from the people walking by. I don't want to have to go through this again. He let out a long-winded sigh as a rock missed him by only an inch. Sasaki was about to retort, but looking at Naruto do nothing, he wisely sat there and did nothing as well. Sakura was a different story, unfortunately. Hey, she turned to the man that threw the stone. What was that for? The man gave her a glance. He was rather tall. He was obviously not a ninja, as seen by the way he walked in his stance. His eyes looked into hers and said, you shouldn't be playing with that brat girl. You don't know what he can do to you. What the hell are you talking about? She grabbed Nar and said, you can't possibly think Nar here is a brat. He's too lovable. Girl, didn't your mother teach you manners? Cussing like that, and worst of all, defending him. Truly, you were not taught well. Sakura was beginning to gather chakra at her fist, but Nar quickly grabbed it. When she glanced over to him, he shook his head. Don't, he whispered. She sighed and complied. They began to walk away, ignoring all the stares they were receiving. Sakura-Aiken, as much as I appreciate you defending me, don't do it. I don't want to bring hate upon your family as well. But, she said, but quickly stopped and said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad your childhood was. No, wait currently is. Tears were leaking from the corners of her eyes. Nar saw this and quickly tried to think of something. He did the first thing that came to mind when trying to calm someone down. He gave her a hug. It's okay Sakura-Aiken. Of course, being smaller than the person you're hugging means that her head would not reach his shoulder. Instead, her neck would go there. Luckily, she bent her knees slightly to be able to make it less awkward. Please, Sasaki sighed. Enough of the sappy stuff. You're killing me. The two stayed like that for a few minutes to the dismay of Sasaki until they finally broke apart. Sakura smiled and kissed Naruto's cheek. Ah, only the cheek Sakura-chan. Naruto, we're only 9 right now. Wouldn't it be a little weird if I did that? She sighed at his obliviousness. He quickly pecked her on the lips and said, not really. She touched her lips and sighed, muttering, idiot. Under her breath as a bright blush came onto her face. So Naruto turned to Sasaki who was simply leaning against a building doing nothing ready to get going. Sasuke Nar asked. Finally, Sasaki let out a large sigh. I thought you two would never stop flirting with each other. Both blushed slightly at that comment. Now let's get going. We don't need any more distractions as there has already been. The 3 children all walked towards the tower that was within eyesight now. The streets of the village were now crowded as people went to work and shopped for various things. The sun was rising up and it was visible off in the distant east. There was no wind at the moment and it made the whole place have a nice warm feeling. Once they made it to the tower, The three walked up a series of stairs and then finally made it into a room that had chairs to the left where people would wait. In front of them was the assistant of the Hokage who was currently sitting there twirling her pen in her hands, completely bored out of her mind. The scene didn't change much until Sasaki walked up and cleared his throat. The woman jumped at the sudden sound and looked at the child. "What do you want?" she asked, her heart still pounding. "I'd like to see the Hokage." The woman was skeptical about letting a child see the Hokage until Sakura came up to her. "Can we please see him?" she said, giving the woman the puppy dog eye look. The woman twitched until the gaze of Sakura until she finally shrugged and said, "Yes, he's available to see you three." The three walked past her and entered the office. "I have fought enemy ninja, but I can't beat that look." How sad. Hogue's office. The office of the Hokage was a pretty square room. There was the Hogue's desk straight from the door. There were many bookshelves to both the left and right and a couple of chairs in front of the desk. There were many different items on the shelves, ranging from scrolls to weapons. In the chair behind the desk, however, sat the Hokage. He wore the traditional Hokage garment. It was a sign of respect and loyalty to one's village. Of course, one person never really cared for that, and he happened to be, "Hey, old man, I haven't seen you in a long time. Have you missed me?" Nar barged into the room and ran straight at the Hokage and jumped over the desk. He quickly gave the man a hug, crushing all the bones within him. "I miss you so much," he said as he squeezed the life out of the man. "Nar," the old man croaked. "You're crushing me," he wheezed out. Nar quickly jumped off and rubbed the back of his head. Hey, sorry, old man. It's just been a long time and all you see." "Nar," he wheezed again. "I saw you yesterday right before you left your house." He looked Nar over and asked, "Why are you wearing an Uchiha outfit?" Sasaki walked forward and said, "I gave it to him. He needed it anyways. Orange is a really distasteful color." Nar glared at the boy. "Anyways, Hokage-sama, we all came here for something important." Saratobi looked over at the pink-haired girl with them. "What brings an Uchiha and a Haruno here with Naruto?" he asked, slightly confused. "We're his friends," Sasaki answered. Sakura shot him a glare and he rephrased that, "I am his friend, she's his girlfriend." The Hokage now had a really confused face on. "When did all this happen?" "Over the years," Hokage-sama, Sakura answered. She looked around and said, "Hokage-sama, can you put a silencing seal around this room? What we have to tell you is really important." Sasaki spoke up saying, "Also, put some chakra barriers up so no one can feel chakra from outside of this room." The Hokage looked at them all suspiciously, but did as he was asked. Once he finished it all, he asked, "What is so important?" "Ill start," Sasaki stated. "I'm 9 years old physically. Mentally, I'm 18. Same with both Naruto and Sakura over here." He pointed over his shoulders to the two who gave a small wave. "We come from the future," Sasaki said with dead seriousness in his voice. "Unfortunately, when a child tries to act serious, it's too cute to be taken seriously." "Right, Sasaki. Please though, what is really going on?" he asked. A smile was on his face. Nar sighed. "He's telling the truth, old man. We came back right before we were about to die." Nar trailed off as he remembered the moment. When he returned to the matter at hand, he said, "You want proof?" "Very much so," Serbi answered. Nar nodded. "Sasaki, I don't know if I can still do this. You try to do your technique as well." Both boys stood in front of the Hokage and began to gather chakra at their hands. Naruto has a spiral of wind and Sasuke was beginning to get electricity to form. Both were obviously having a hard time trying to do it, for their faces were screwed in concentration. Suddenly, Sasaki couldn't hold it and turned it off, not without burning his hand. Naruto couldn't do his move either, and it backfired, sending him across the room and hitting the wall. "Ouch." Sakura sighed and walked over to Sasaki. "This might be better proof, Hokage-sama," she said as her hands turned a light green color and repaired the damaged skin on Sasuke's hands. The Hokage sat shocked, his pipe slowly sliding out of his mouth. Two kids were in the beginning stages of doing Chidori and Rasen, and one of them could easily do medical jutsu. What is going on here? All of them easily had as much or more chakra than himself even. "Sakura-chan, how can you control your chakra so much easier than us?" Nar complained as he climbed out of the pile of books he was in. Sakura walked over and gave him a hand out of the mess and said, "Remember, I naturally have good control of my chakra, but that was always because you had smaller amounts." Nar said, confused. Sakura sighed and said, "I have control of some of it, not all of it." This was evident by the sweat that appeared on her forehead. She quickly wiped it away. Naruto accepted the answer and got up and walked back to the desk where Sasaki had already sat down and was engaged in a staring contest with the Hokage. The Hokage finally broke the silence and eye contact and said, "You three, you're all formidable. As children, you all easily have as much chakra as I do. When you learn to regain control at all, you'll be unbeatable." "You really think so?" Nar asked in wonder. Stars were practically bulging out of his eyes. "That's awesome." Sasaki sighed at Naruto's behavior and turned to the Hokage. "You believe us now?" Serbi sighed as unbelievable as it is. "Yes, I do." He leaned back and asked, "What happened that caused you to come back to the past?" "We were surrounded by enemy ninja. Our chances of surviving were zero. We couldn't have lived if we didn't do this," Sasaki explained. "That's very vague." Naruto sighed. "Orochimaru is an evil bastard. He created the village of the sound in about 3 years from now. And he put the cursed seal on Sasaki. He survives the attack. Fast forward a little. The village is attacked by both the sand and sound during the Chunin exam. We win, but at a cost." Naruto looks down for a second. "Anyways, Jiraiya decides to train me and teaches me Rasengan. We go to look for Tsunade for purposes, and that's when I first saw Akatsuki. They're an organization that wants the demons within people like Kyobi, for instance." At the mention of Kyobi, Sarubi asked, "Do they know of it?" He gestured over to Sakura and Sasaki. "Yeah, they do," Nar assured him. "Anyway, where was I? I'll continue." Sasaki volunteered. "After Naruto goes away from Konoha, I follow because I hear Itachi is going after him. Once I find Nar, Itachi was there and completely destroyed me. After that, I fell into a coma that only a very advanced medic ninja could heal. Nar finds, and after some difficulties, they return to Konoha." "What is the real purpose of bringing Tsunade to Konoha?" Serbi asked. The three children eyed each other, unsure of what to do. "Well," Naruto began, "we can't tell you the reason." "Sorry, Hokage-sama," Sakura answered. "I'll say the next part," she said. Nar came back with Tsunade. After she heals Sasuke, they both get into a huge fight. Our sensei gets them both out of it, but it was too late. The damage it could do was already done. Our team was beginning to break. Sasaki accepted the invitation the sound sent him to join them. Shikamaru, who was promoted to Chunin, gathered a team to go bring him back. After the whole ordeal, Naruto and Sasaki have another fight. Sasaki won simply because of a promise I made Nar keep. "What was the promise?" Serbi asked in wonder. Nar said what he remembered of it. "Promise me you'll bring Sasaki back, Nar." He sighed. "I said it was a promise of a lifetime. Of course, I failed." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Anyway," Sasaki interrupted before it could become another moment between the two. "Naruto goes on a training trip out of the village with Jiraiya-sama. I worked with Orochimaru and Sakura trained under Tsunade-sama. After about 2 years, Naruto returns and they have to hurry because the snake freak wanted to take control of my body." He shuddered. "I hear that both he and Sakura were able to take down members of Akatsuki as they began to become active again. Gar was the first demon to fall." "Who's this Gar person?" the Hokage asked. Naruto answered. "He's like me. He carries the one-tailed demon, Shukaku." Serbi nodded his head. "I see. Please continue." He gestured with his hand for the boy to continue. "Akatsuki captures most of the demons. The only one they hadn't captured was Naruto's. Of course, at this time, I finally was able to kill Itachi." He grimaced at the memory. "I learned then that he was ordered to kill my clan." He couldn't help but glare at the Hokage, but he continued on anyway. "Once that was done with, I returned to the Sound Village with the snake, simply waiting days for when I was used to become the next body of the freak." Naruto picked up. "When Sakura and I hear news of this, we quickly went out of the village as fast as we could. We entered the Sound Village, knowing our time was very limited, and destroyed anyone that got in our way. Unfortunately, after hours, we were finally taken down. Orochimaru had us tied in the center of town and told us of a surprise." He glanced at Sasaki. He came out completely void of emotion. "Sakura and I knew we were going to die, so we spoke to each other. And after Orochimaru spoke, it must have made a spark go off in Sasuke's head. After that, Sasaki stabbed Orochimaru and used a weird jutsu to save us from the death that awaited us. And we ended up 9 years in the past with all our power from the old timeline." Sakura finished. Sarutobi took a few minutes to absorb everything he heard. He nodded his head twice. "I see. I am assuming that was just the Cliff Notes version." "Yes, Hokage-sama," Sakura said. "It would take days to go over everything." The three looked at him expectantly. Sasaki spoke up and said, "What do you want us to do, Hokage-sama?" "Well," he began, still dazed from everything he has heard and seen. That was quite a tale, and from the evidence, it's at least plausible. He thought for a moment, with the three looking on nervously. Well, it would be useless to keep you in the academy with such strength. If Nar and Sasaki learned to control it, you three would be a very powerful group. I have decided, he said after another few minutes, I will keep you three in the academy to say goodbye to your friends and hello as well. Considering you three haven't seen them in quite some time. He chuckled before continuing. Afterwards, you three will be trained until you're ready to become Andu agents. What's the estimated time that you will regain your control? Sakura spoke up knowing she was the most knowledgeable on this kind of thing. Well, according to Outcurrent Control, I'd say if we do the chakra controlling exercises from bottom to top, we'll be able to regain control in a year or so. Saratobi nodded. Very well. This is your last week at the academy. It will allow me time to set up a program for you three. This will last for a year or until you all gain control, whichever comes first. After this, you'll all be promoted to Ambu rank, though we won't allow them to know who you all are. He glanced at Naruto. Some incidents could occur that I'd rather we skip over. The three children nodded. Sasaki said, thanks, Hokage-sama. We appreciate it. I'll see you in a week, old man. Naruto said as he grinned happily and put his hands behind his head. After that, the three left the office after the Hokage dispelled the jutsu. He simply leaned back in his chair and sighed. What a day. He closed his eyes. I need to think about everything they have told me. I need to milk every detail about the future. And Hokage-sama, his assistant, called. What is it? He asked, dreading the answer. She walked in carrying a stack of papers. The paperwork has just arrived. Would you like to do it now? Saratobi went over the large stack of paper and could feel a sting in his eyes. Just put them here. I'll do it all later. When the woman left, the Hoge's head fell on the desk and he sighed heavily. I hate paperwork. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasaki all walked out of the tower. It was probably a few hours until noon, and that could only mean one thing. We're late for class, Sakura shouted. She grabbed Naruto's hand and Sasaki by the back of the shirt and ran as fast as she could. When Nar slipped, she simply dragged him along the dirt road. Halfway there, Sakura's energy was used up, and she sat down on a nearby bench, gasping for breath. Damn, she muttered. I forgot. We're not in our old bodies anymore. We have to train ourselves hard so we can make the Hoge's expectations. She accepted Naruto's hand and was lifted up off the bench. She had stopped in the middle of town at a rather large water fountain. Various high-quality shops were around it, and benches surrounded the fountain along with various different plants. The trio sat on one of the benches around the fountain, yet again, ignoring all the glares that Nar was making them receive. Okay, we're obviously not going to make it in time. Nar sighed dejectedly. Man, I didn't know how much time passed in there. Sasaki nodded. We'll get there eventually. It's not like we need to learn anything in there anyway. Just a quick week in there, then we'll begin our real training. The sun had risen above the buildings now, and the heat was quite relaxing on their small bodies as they simply sat there thinking. People walked past them, ignoring or glaring at Naruto until he snapped out of his chain of thought. We should get there now, he said as he slid off the bench. Come on, Sasuke grunted, meaning he agreed with the blonde, even though he didn't like it. He slid off following Sakura, whose legs were still a little wobbly from running so far and fast so early. Nar kneeled down in front of her as an invitation to get on his back. No, she said, I couldn't. Nar snickered and said, why not? I don't mind at all. At that, Sakura smiled and got on top of her boyfriend. In this kind of situation, being larger than the one who was carrying you can be a bad thing. Sakura's head surpassed Naruto's own. This is weird, she admitted. It's kind of funny, though. I remember you carrying me recently when you were taller than me. Nar thought back to the memory too. You mean the time when we killed that Akatsuki jerk? Which one was it, Kizum? Nar snorted. Ah, he injured your leg so I had to carry you all the way home. He looked in thought for a moment and said, you were kind of heavy. What did you eat that day? Smack. She slapped him in the head and muttered under her breath while an embarrassed blush was present on her face. It was because you were weak. Not because I was fat. Who said you were fat? Nar asked, mock confusion on his face. Even if you were fat, your beauty makes up for it. Smack. She hit him on the head again. We're in public. Don't talk like that. It's embarrassing. It's only true. Nar smiled back at her. Sasaki began to walk ahead of the couple. God, those two act like they're already married. He looked back over his shoulder and could see Nar carrying Sakura a pass right by him. Hey Sasaki, I bet I can beat you in a race to the academy. He shouted over his shoulder when he was several feet ahead of the Uchiha boy. Sasaki smirked and ran towards the two. Hey, you know Nar, even back then, I was always faster than you. He easily caught up to them and lowered his speed to a jog. Well, settle this when you don't have extra weight. He motioned at Sakura. Before they could continue, they ran into a small group of people all surrounded around one person. When the crowd parted for the three of them as they passed, they could hear various things like, there she is. She's with the fox brat. What's the Uchiha doing around that brat? Nar looked down and tried his best to ignore the people talking, but Sasaki and Sakura both glared at them as they passed by. Once they made it to the middle of the crowd, Sakura paled considerably. Mom. The tall pink-haired woman turned her attention to the voice she just heard. She had bright green eyes, similar to Sakura's, and a red dress on. She rushed over to her daughter, but stopped halfway when she saw who was carrying her. What did I tell you about that boy, Sakura? She shouted immediately. Naruto looked frightened, and Sasaki looked curiously at the mother and daughter. Sakura looked at her mother's eyes knowing she was talking about Nar. What was it about Nar you wanted me to remember? I kind of forgot. The woman was becoming angrier now. Sakura. Is he why you never came home last night? I was worried sick. Look at you. Whose clothes are you wearing? They aren't. She pointed at Nar. His clothes are they. Sakura sighed. No, mother. These are Sasuke's over there. Sasaki gave a little wave. Naruto is not the reason I didn't come home last night. She didn't know what to say. I got lost in the woods and Nar was there and led me out. Sasaki found both of us later that night and allowed us to stay at his house considering how late it was. Sakura, is there a reason you're letting him carry you? Her mother's tone was low, but all knew she was about to explode. Oh, she looked down at Naruto's head and smiled. Nar shook his head. He didn't want her to get into trouble because of him. But Sakura ignored his protest. Well, I would let Sasaki do it, but I wouldn't want my boyfriend to get jealous of us. All was silent. What? A huge scream echoed across the streets in town. Every individual in the village had to stop for a moment. The scream was so loud. Once her mother stopped screaming, she stomped towards Sakura. You skipped classes because of him and he must have corrupted you or something. I have given you a lecture every night about him and you disobey me now. The three children notice all the adults agreeing with the angry mother. This isn't good, Nar whispered to Sakura. She only nodded. Maybe blowing her mother's fuse wasn't such a great idea. Sasaki sighed. Hang on. All the adults stopped, even Sakura's mother. Everyone in the village knew that the last Uchiha was vital for the future and they needed to respect his wishes. What is it, Uchiha? A random villager asked. Now that I have your attention, he coughed and said, you people wouldn't really want to hurt my friends here, would you? Sakura's mother spoke up. I'd never hurt my daughter. It's the brat there that should be hurt. Why don't you go away with Sakura and we adults will handle the BR? I mean, Nar. She gave a fake smile. Sasaki sighed. Listen, woman. First off, I don't like your daughter that way. Secondly, if you hurt him, I will have to fight you all. He lowered himself into the stance Orochimaru taught to him, though he despised the snake freak. His taijutsu style was quite useful. Many of the adults sighed about stupid children, and walked away. However, a few of them stayed, not really caring much for the so-called last. Listen, kid, said a man to his left, if you interfere with us, we're going to have to. He never finished his sentence for Sasaki. Simple punch him straight in the face. The man stumbled back and fell. Sasaki was still a child, but even he knew how to make a strong punch. Several more adults came running at him, intent on taking him down. A child could not possibly pose any threat to a fully grown man. Right. Sasaki jumped out of the way of the charging adults and kicked one of them in the side. The man fell down, but was not unconscious. Sasaki smirked, but it was taken off his face as he heard yelling coming from behind him. Right when the man was about to get Sasaki in his grasp and could inflict serious damage on his small frame, Naruto came up and kicked him right in the side. The two boys stood back to back facing the seven that still stood to fight them. So the fox brat wants to fight now. One of them said, Ha, I wouldn't fight you normally, but if you even dare harm my friend. He closed his eyes and reopened them. I will hurt you. His eyes were blood red with a slit down the middle. This made over half the group turn around and run away. Only 3 remained to fight. Damn it. I thought for sure those eyes would get them running. Naruto thought. He had learned in his previous timeline how to do that ability. It was to strike fear into your opponents, so they ran away. It did require chakra, but only to activate it. After that, it drained little to no chakra, depending on the circumstance. Nar quickly turned it off when he knew the few remaining men would not run. After a few minutes of stalling, one of the men jumped towards the two kids, allowing Sasaki to easily jump to the side, dodging the man completely. Nar too got out of the way, and while the man was on the ground recovering from his jump, he kicked him in the head, knocking him out cold. Before the two remaining men could charge or leave, Sakura got behind the two, jumped up to their necks, and pressed a pressure point, knocking them out cold. Sakura smiled, and put up a peace sign for both of her friends. "You both okay?" she shouted out to them. Sasaki looked at his hand from when he punched the man in the face. It was red, and a bruise was appearing on his fist. "Could you heal this?" he asked uncertainly. She looked over the small wound and brought her hands up. A small green light emitted from them. She quickly covered his hands with hers and began to heal them. Within 10 seconds, she stopped and fell on her butt. "That's all I can do." She gasped for breath without losing consciousness. "You had very little chakra to control at this age," Nar concluded. He quickly braced himself for a punch, but then remembered the girl was exhausted on the ground. Sasaki examined his hand. "I can manage with this." It was still a little red and there was barely any blue in the middle of the hand. "Thank you, Sakura." Sakura looked over to her mother and said, "Sorry, but this is how I like it." "Just go, dear," her mother said as she looked over all the people on the ground. "We'll talk some other time." She did not want to argue with her daughter about the matter while she was with her two violent friends, so she allowed herself to leave the site. Before the three of them left, a group of 5 Ambu landed down on the road where all the people were. "What happened here?" asked one behind a dog mask. He looked around until he saw Nar. His features turned hard and said, "Was it you?" He sounded as though he already made up his mind. Before he could advance towards Nar, Sasuke got between them and said, "No, when my friends were passing here, some adults were making it hard for us. So, I attacked out of rage." He bowed his head. "I am sorry. It will not happen again." Nar and Sakura had nothing to do with this. "Oh, really?" the man said, obviously not believing his story. "Well, then you three be safe. We'll clean this up." The 3 children looked skeptical at the man, but left without any trouble. He turned to his men and said, "Follow them for the day, and make sure they do nothing out of the ordinary." His 4 men all nodded and jumped within the trees and followed the children through the town. From the Hokage Tower, Sarubi watched the whole thing from his crystal ball. "I hope those children will be all right." He was about to call off the Anu following them, but figured it would be a test of sorts. Let's see how well they can avoid them or if they even notice them. He brought out a pipe and a quill and began to work with the crystal ball to keep tabs on the trio from the future. Ninja Academy. The 3 entered through the gates into the academy and marveled at how similar was to how they remembered it. The large building was right in front of them, and the swing Nerd always loved was over to their right, how it always was. The building was a dark red color, and all was silent. "You think they noticed we were all gone?" Sakura asked as she opened the front door to the place. Sasaki and Naruto both followed close behind. "Nah, they're probably too busy with some lesson right now," Nar said with a grin. Sasuke gave him a look and he sighed, slumped, and said, "Or they may have noticed a little." They walked through the halls and finally reached the door to their class. They all could hear their old teacher, Iruka, lecturing the class on some sort of thing. "Well," Sasaki sighed, "let's get this over with." He opened the door into the class. When the door creaked open, everyone stopped sleeping or paying attention and looked over. Nar walked forward and cleared his throat. "Hello everyone. How are all of you?" When he received silence, he said, "Awesome. Sorry we're kind of late, Iruka. You see, Sasaki, Sakura-chan, and I were all sort of caught up in something." "Nar," Iruka growled, "you're almost 2 hours late for class. What did it do to involve both Sakura and Sasaki?" Naruto tried to think of something quickly. "Well, you see, Sasaki was being an underscore, again. So, I challenged him to a fight. Sakura-chan over there was around and cheered for Sasuke to beat me." He said that with a bitter tone, but some people came by and tried to interfere with our fight. Sasaki came in for the rescue. That didn't sit well with me, so I simply had to kick their asses. He thought harder. That all couldn't equal 2 hours. Then some Ambu came while I was fight. Sakura came in. Then they took Naruto and Sasaki to the Hokage. Okay, that covered them. Now what about me? And I followed to make sure they both were all right. She finished. The Hokage released us late and told us to hurry here. And now here we are. Let's continue on with class, shall we? Nar shouted and took his usual seat in the back of the class. Sakura looked over at him. Seeing no free seats, she sat next to her longtime rival. Ino Sasaki walked down the row trying to act like how he did then with his hands in his pockets and no emotion on his face. He went to the front of the class and sat paying all his attention on Iruka. Okay then, Iruka said, not sure what to make of the tale. After several moments of silence, he continued on with the lecture. The classroom was a rectangular shape. There were 5 rows of places for the students to sit. Each row lifted up a foot from the front one so students didn't have to move their heads around to see the front of the class. There were stairs cut straight through all the desks, so there were 2 sides to the whole class. In front was Iruka behind a stand with many papers on it, and behind him was a huge chalkboard that went over the whole wall behind the intellectual man. Sasaki was in the front row to the left, Sakura sat in the 4th row to the right, and Naruto in the 5th to the left of the stairs. All of them tried their best not to look at each other to raise suspicion. Nar in the back could only pay attention for a few minutes before his head hit his desk. He began to daydream of what he could do to make this timeline work. Meanwhile, Sakura listened to every word that left Iruka's mouth. Even though she has heard all this before, she couldn't help but get angry over it. What? He's just explaining what could happen on the field. They need a demonstration so they won't die the first time they fight an enemy ninja. Sasaki felt the need to do what Nar just did, but couldn't do it. He didn't want to lose his reputation he built up too quickly. When the class knew he hung out with Nar, he knew that he would become much less popular than he was. All in due time, he thought with a smile on his face, which disturbed the hell out of Iruka. When has Sasaki ever smiled? He shook his head out of his daze. Okay, class, it's lunchtime. Have fun and don't hurt yourselves. All the children quickly poured out of the academy to head outside. The sun was now overhead and it was very bright outside. When the students exited the academy, Nerd went for his favorite spot. It was almost automatic for him. His feet simply led the way to his favorite seat, and he simply sat himself down. He sighed and looked at all the children playing around him. When Sasaki came out, he saw Nar by himself and looked around. He never sat with anyone else, so he figured he could go be with his best friend. Hey, Nar, he said as he came within speaking distance. How are you doing? I'm wondering if eating dirt would harm me, he said honestly as drool escaped his mouth. I wish we had ramen around here. Over on the other sit, Ino and Sakura sat together. Ino offered Sakura some of her lunch, but Sakura simply shook her hands in front of her. No thanks. I have already eaten this morning. Ino accepted the answer and sat down against a tree. Sakura sat down to her left. So, who won? She asked out of the blue. What? Sakura asked, confused. The fight. Who won it? Ino asked again, more specific this time. Sakura nodded. Ah, well, you see, the ambu came before it finished. And who would have won? Well, Sakura thought for a moment. She liked Naruto, but Sasaki was also her friend. It would have been a tie. Both are really good. Ino nodded. Well, I bet Sasuke _ would have won if I was there. You're way too uninspiring, Ino said, stars appearing in her eyes. What? Sakura got an evil look in her eye. It's obvious that Naruto would have won if it weren't for the Anbu. Ino looked over at the girl in shock. What you're saying? Nar, the dead last is better than Sasaki _ what is wrong with you? Do you have a fever? Sakura snorted as if Sasaki can't beat Nar even if Nar had his hands tied behind his back. The challenge was offered and neither child would back down. Ino and Sakura both walked over to the 2 boys who were simply chatting and each grabbed one of them. Ino dragged Sasuke one way and Sakura dragged Naruto the other. Once they were far enough distance apart, Sakura turned to Nar and said, okay, Nar, tie your hands behind your back with this. She grabbed the blue ribbon in her hair and handed it to Nar and I want you to kick Sasuke's. Wah what? Nar asked, confusion evident in his voice. You want me to hurt Sasuke? What for? Sakura gave him a kiss on the lips and said, do it for me. Okay. Nar, too lost in thought, simply nodded. A goofy grin pasted on his face. Over to Sasaki and Ino. Sasaki _ I want you to show everyone here that you can kick Naruto's. What? Why? He sighed. Ino just let me go over and he glanced over at Naro and saw Sakura tying his hands behind his back. What's going on? He asked slightly confused. Sakura is saying that Nar could beat you with his hands behind his back. I know it's not true. So I want you to go out there and kick his for me. Ino explained. Sasaki sighed again. We have much more important things to do than this. He thought as a frown came to his face like trying to stop Orochimaru and Akatsuki. This is not on top of the important thing to do list. He agreed to the terms. However, when Naruto with a grin on his face walked hazily over to him. Nar and Sasaki walked out to the middle of the academy fields looking each other in the eye. Nar got rid of his goofy grin and looked on with seriousness in his eyes. Sasaki was the first one to speak. Nar, why the hell did you agree to this? Hey, I have my reasons. He replied, and he turned serious. Sasaki, since I am so nice, I'll allow you to make the first move. Sasaki nodded and went through some hand seals, which Nar recognized immediately. Sasaki brought his hands to his mouth and blew out a huge fireball at Nar. Both were trained to not speak the moves they were to do so their opponent would be surprised instead of finding a quickly counter for the element it was they were going against. Nar quickly rolled over to the side and avoided the huge fireball. Guakaku no Jutsu, Nar thought as he watched Sasaki remove his hand from his mouth signaling the end of the attack. He quickly ran towards Sasaki and tried to kick up in the head, but Sasaki quickly grabbed his foot and threw him quite a distance away. By now the fight had drawn the attention of all the students. They all circled around the two fighting and Sakura and Ino watched with confidence. Suddenly a younger Ka yelled from the crowd. Go Naruto! Kick that guys! He deserves to be knocked down a peg. Sasaki glared at the guy and Nar smiled. I am not as popular as I thought I was. Sasaki sighed. He looked towards Nar again. He focused chakra into his eyes. I need to get Sharingan so I can end this quickly. He quickly retracted all the chakra from his eyes when a burning sensation came up. Damn, he said out loud. What's wrong, Sasaki-chan? Nar joked as he advanced forward to keep up attacking. Sasaki simply sidestepped his kick and said, at this rate, I won't even need sharing. As he said that, hands emerged from the ground and grabbed Sasaki's feet. What the hell? He shouted as he tried to get away from the grip, but it was too strong. Nar grinned. The rules were I had my hands tied behind my back. It never stated that I couldn't use any jutsu. The clone quickly pulled Sasaki down to his head. Got you. Nar got face to face with him, and suddenly Sasaki exploded into a ton of smoke. Up here, Sasaki shouted. Nar looked up in the air to see Sasaki coming down with his fist held back. Nar quickly fell to the ground and rolled around Sasuke's blow and attempted to kick him in the face, but Sasaki switched positions and grabbed his foot. Both then jumped away from each other. What going on here? Iruka shouted as he made his way through all his students. What he was hearing was making him worried. You can do it, Sasaki _. When did Nar get so good? Are those clones solid? Nar, don't lose to him. Of course, since he was taller than all of the children, he saw what was going on almost instantly. Nar Sasaki. He was about to call it off until Sakura ran in front of where the most students were and proceeded to speak. Sakura had seen Iruka right away when he came out, so she quickly did the first thing that came to her head. She ran to where a majority of the people were standing and began to lecture them. Okay, students, this is what fights will be like. Of course, you won't have your hands tied to your back. Notice how they both attack each other with the intent to kill. That is what a real fight is all about. The opponent will not go easy on you. He or she will try to exploit your weaknesses and use them against you. They won't allow you to get up once you fall or pick up weapons you drop. They'll usually try to use their stronger techniques to finish you off quickly. Or if they're smart, they'll avoid all your techniques and wait until you're low on chakra and begin to attack you. She stopped and gathered her breath. Notice here how she observed the fight a little. Several clones of Nar now pinned down Sasaki as Nar gathered sloppily chakra at his feet and tried to kick Sasaki hard in the gut. Luckily, Sasaki managed to kick the head of one of Naruto's clones and got out of the way of his attack. Okay. See how Nar sloppily gathered his chakra for that attack. That is why you want to perfect your chakra control as soon as you possibly can. Nar looked hurtfully at Sakura. Hey, I'm not that bad. Hey Nar, pay attention. Sasaki shouted as he charged up another fire attack. This time it sent multiple little fireballs at Nar, who quickly made a shield of clones to block it all. That's cheap, Sasaki. He shouted angrily. Hey, Sakura. Sasaki shouted. Be sure to tell them not to be distracted in a fight ever too. Like the idiot here. Sasaki pointed at Nar. Sakura aside that too. After a couple of minutes, both boys were gasping for breath. Damn it, Nar thought. If I could grasp control of all this damn chakra in me, I could beat him or use my hands for that matter. Sasaki thought something similar to Nar. Both looked each other in the eye and ran towards one another. Sasake's fist landed right in between Naruto's eyes as Naruto's landed in the same spot on Sasuke's face. Both stood in that position for a moment with each other's fist in each other's face. Finally, both fell backwards. Everyone looked on in silence. Nothing made any noise. That was awesome. Ka shouted. throwing his fist into the air. Many other children did the same to show their agreement to the matter. Ino looked devastated. Sasaki was tied with Naruto, the so-called dead last. Aruruka ran over to the children and checked their heartbeat. When it was at normal speed, he sighed out some relief. "They're not that badly hurt," he said as Sakura came walking over. "That's good," she sighed. She then looked over at the cheering class and yelled, "Listen up." When no one heeded her words, she brought her fist in the air and slammed it against the ground. A crater appeared below that was several feet wide. Needless to say, it had the desired effect. Now, both of them knocked each other out. That usually means the match is over and an honorable individual would normally leave his opponent to fight another day. Unfortunately, there are those out there that would use this to their advantage if they recover first and will probably kill you. Sakura returned to both of them and asked to the class, "Now, do you all know what a job of a medic nin is?" Most of the students nodded. Good. If there is one nearby. Their immediate job is to help heal their teammate back to health no matter what. She raised her hands above Naruto's head and a green glow came up. Doing this requires a lot of control. She quickly rubbed Naruto's forehead knowing she was going to run out of chakra quickly. She then switched to Sasaki and did the same. "That is what they do," she said. Using these abilities at her young age was definitely taking its toll. Both Nar and Sasaki stirred awake and looked at each other. Who won? They asked each other. They then glared at each other. "You mean it was a draw?" Nar asked, continuing to glare at his longtime rival. "I guess it was." Sasuke sighed. "Damn, all the training actually did improve you." He led up the glare and smiled. Nar snorted. "That's what it's for. And you can never become strong if you just rely on your family name." He got up and gave Sasaki his hand, who accepted it and got up himself. Naruto noticed Sakura on the ground and asked, Sakura, you alright?" He offered her his hand up and she grabbed hold on it and got up. Once she was standing, she leaned on Nar, who was leaning on Sasaki. Sasaki had to hold both of them up now. And Sakura began, "That's all you need to learn today." Iruka called in the class and watched as the three leaning one another came in with each other. Sakura gave Naruto a quick kiss again. Since when have they been friends? Iruka thought to himself. Sakura has always hated Nar and Sasaki has always been the silent type. I wonder if this is worth reporting to the Hokage. Hell, Naruto even knew Cage Bunch technique and Sakura a medical jutsu. Up in the trees surrounding the academy, the Anbu who were spying on the children were surprised by their abilities and powers. These aren't normal children. After saying that, the four following them jumped away to report to their team leader. Inside the academy, the three friends all sat by each other. All the students sat in their normal seats, though Sakura and Sasaki to sit by their friend kicked Shikamaru and Choji off the top row. Iruka tried to start a lecture, but couldn't get his mind off the students in the top row, the three of them specifically. So, finally, he just decided, okay, class. Class is over early. Sakura had a good enough lesson outside. All the students quickly cleared their way out of the school and left. Only a few were left. Hinata in the front row, slowly walking to the top, Shikamaru and Shoji near the bottom, and finally the three friends hanging out at the top. "You're not that bad of a teacher, Sakura," Naruto said as he got up and stretched. Sasaki and Sakura followed suit. "Yeah, while you were gone for that 2.5-year training trip I had to teach a few classes," she stated. "The BRZ were annoying as hell," she muttered. The more she thought of it, Sasuke walked out the door saying, "I'll be outside waiting for you, too." Sakura and Naruto both nodded and were about to follow him, but a shaky voice stopped them in their tracks. "Naruto-kun," she said. Instantly, Sakura glared at her and held on to Naruto's shoulder firmly, and Naruto turned to greet her. "Hello, Hinata," Nar greeted. He took notice of her blush and shaky figure. Her fingers pressed together. Why is she like that? "Do you have a fever?" he asked, concern filling his voice. She shook her head. "No, na Naruto-kun," she answered. It was silent for a moment before Sakura broke it, asking, "Do you need something?" Hinata seemed to snap out of her silence and said, Naruto-kun, I thought YUFA Ray really well." Thanks Hinata," Nar said, scratching the back of his head. Sakura sighed. Nar, even after so many years, he was as dense as before. "Hinata, thank you for complimenting Nar, but we have to leave now. Sasaki is waiting for us." She wrapped both her arms around Naruto and leaned her head against his shoulder and walked out, praying Hinata got the silent message she sent about Naruto. Needless to say, she did when she looked away and tears almost came out of his eyes. "Hinata." She looked up and saw Shikamaru standing there with Choji behind him. "Are you okay?" She tried to say no, but all she could do was shake her head and began to cry. No, she whispered quietly. Geez, Shikamaru exclaimed in an unexcited way. Don't cry. This is why women are so troublesome. Some are evil and some are too nice. There's never one right in the middle. It will be all right, he said uncertainly. Hinata flew into his chest and cried some more. And all Shikamaru could do was pat her back, telling her it was all right. This was how he always saw his dad do it when his mother was really upset. Anyway, outside the academy, the three walked out of the academy from the exhausting first day. They walked down a dirt path with Naruto, the leader, for the time being. Hey guys, let's head to my house. I want to get a few things that I think I still have there. They walked on in silence for a little bit before Nar broke it once again. Being this young sucks. We don't have any control and we're as weak as hell. Naruto exclaimed. That fight would have been much more interesting if we weren't holding back our more powerful attacks. Nar Sasuke said, we can't even do our more powerful attacks. Hell, I couldn't even activate sharing. I got this damn stinging sensation in my eyes. Sakura nodded. It makes sense. At this age, we barely had enough chakra. She stopped and looked at Nar. Most of us barely had enough chakra to do on B rank technique. I'm surprised your fight went on for so long. That made them silent for a long time until Naruto broke the silence once more. Will it really take us only a year to regain all that we lost? I mean, the old man wants us to be in Ambu. That's huge. Nervousness was dripping off his voice. What the hell? Nar is nervous about something. He can be nervous. Guess you learn something new every day. Sasaki thought. He then spoke. If not, well, just take another year. Orochimaru is not planning to attack for a little more than 3 years, and Akatsuki is not going to be collecting the demons for another 5 years or so. Yeah, Sakura agreed. We definitely have enough time to do this. They stopped talking when they saw a group of people walking towards them. All of them were laughing and snickering until they saw the three coming towards them. They proceeded down the road until they got an earshot of Naruto and said, Hey brat, I hope you like what we did with your home. It fits you much better now. He laughed and the group quickly ran ahead of the children, knowing what they could possibly do to them. Nar offered them one word of satisfaction. A crap. He quickly ran ahead, leaving his two friends behind. After a few seconds, letting the words register in their minds, they quickly ran too, trying to catch up to the blonde. When they got to the apartment complex where Naruto lived, they looked around. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. Though saying the apartment building was wondrous was similar to calling an adorable puppy horribly ugly. It was a very rectangular building made out of bricks. There were stairs leading to the upper levels where they knew Naruto lived. They slowly walked up the stairs. Every step felt like they'd fall through to the bottom. Once they reached the second floor, the both of them walked until they reached Naruto's door, which was on the floor. Nar Sakura called in. Getting no answer, she walked past the door and entered. Sasaki noticed both the windows next to Naruto's door were broken and walked in to find what broke through them. He found 2 bricks, one that hid each window. Each had a message for the demon child. Sasaki read them both, and grew angered. He gathered chakra into his hand and managed to crush the 2 bricks with ease. Sakura wandered into the kitchen where all of Naruto's cooking utensils were spread all about in a very messy way. On the walls of the house were graffiti that people wrote about Nar. Sakura didn't read it, knowing it would make her cry and feel angry, which she already felt enough of. Sasaki and Sakura met again in the small living room that was there when you first entered the house. They walked down the only hall in the house. On the left was the bathroom and on the right was Naruto's bedroom, or rather, what was remaining of it. Did they have to destroy everything? Nar questioned when the two entered the room. Sakura was the first to speak. Nar, I'm so sorry. It's okay, Sakura-chan. He grinned over at her, though it was obviously fake. I can fix most of it and wipe the writing off the walls. Backlash dash. Hell no. Sasaki spoke up. This place is trashed and there is no way you're going to keep on living here. Sakura agreed. Yeah, Nar, you have to report this to the Hokage. I mean, they completely destroyed your home. Nar sighed. The fake grin came off easily. No, I can't do that. That would mean a victory for the people who did this. Besides, half the ninja population of this village isn't very fond of me right now, either. Well, you can come live with me now, Sasuke said. It gets lonely at my place a lot anyway from what I remember. And I'll stay, too. I don't really want to be with my mom right now. Sakura added, come on, Nar. She held her hand out to him. It's not just you this time around. We're all in this together. Nar looked up, tears evident in his eyes. Yeah, he accepted her hand and got up quickly. He gave her a tight hug and said, Yes, as three, well, make everything much better this time around. The three walked out of the place, none ever intending to go back. Nar opened his eyes slowly, allowing them to get used to the dim light that was just entering the room. He was going to stretch, but felt some weight on his chest. He looked down and saw Sakura resting her head on his chest, her hair all scattered around everywhere. He sighed and watched her breath for a moment. The two were on the couch from the last day in the Uchiha mansion that they all decided to live in together. Naruto was near falling off the edge while Sakura had the inside of the couch to herself and was having her head rest on his chest. Sasaki was again sleeping in the chair across from them, saying something the other night about how he had nightmares whenever he slept in his own room. Nar moved his hand from its position hanging off the couch to move the hair out of the girl's face. He smiled when she sighed softly. Of course, he wanted to do more, like give her a morning kiss or something, but he still remembered her lecture from last night. Dear God, even at this age, she can yell so loud, he thought. She was claiming how he can't do certain things with her at this age because they were so young and hadn't even hit puberty yet and all kinds of other things. All he really got out of it was all he could do with her right now was flirting, and hugs and kisses were usually a bonus. If he was really good, he decided. He again looked down at her when she began to stir herself. Morning. Nar offered to start the conversation. Yeah, she muttered, not wanting to wake up. What time is it? Nar looked at the clock they had installed last night in the room so they wouldn't be left in the blue of what time it was. Almost 7, he answered, looking back at her. Ah, she said, wake me up in an hour. She promptly went back to sleep. This could be bad, Nar thought, slightly worried about the situation. He wasn't tired anymore. He wanted to get up and go practice some things. But on the other hand, this was his longtime love laying on him. She didn't even object to it. The only downside to that was that they were too young to do anything very serious. This is quite the dilemma. He sighed and continued to lie there. What should I do? His eyes wandered the corners of the room and such. Nothing interesting was going on around there. Comfortable? Sasaki asked from his position on the chair. A smirk was evident on his face. Nar looked over and smiled, jealous. Nah, Sasaki said. She deserves you, especially after all you two have been through together. Even though it was to bring you back, the so-called love of her life. Nar smiled at the irony. This is awesome, he sighed happily. I have you two to help me get through all the challenges ahead, and we have a chance to save all those that died. Serbi instantly flashed in their minds. We need to save the old man this time. Nar said quietly. He's like a grandfather figure to me, the first person to ever show me any kindness or respect. Sasaki nodded in understanding. He was a great man. He thought for a moment, then corrected himself. He is a good man. But Nar started. That brings up one problem. What will be the point of getting Sununade to come to the village? If Itachi decides to have an early visit again, Sasuke mumbled. Then we'll need her if he used his sharing on someone. Nar smirked slightly. So, we should let someone go through all that torture to get us the mission to bring her. He asked. Oh, yeah. I bet the old man would love that plan a whole lot. I also want to try to save him. Nar paused. Yeah, he ended up being a good guy the entire time, right? Yes, he was ordered to wipe out the whole village by the higher UPS. How could we help him? Nar shook his head. That also brings up the point about Danzo as well. When Sakura and I went to try and save you, he was trying to gain control of the village from Sununade, who went into a coma after a huge assault by Akatsuki. I don't know, but the sooner he is out, the better. Then we can do something about Itachi. I don't know. Naruto sighed. Look, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. There is no need to concern Serbi about a betrayal that isn't going to happen for a decade. However, we'll do anything in our power to prevent him from getting to power. He looked thoughtful. Let's get back to Sununade for now. How do we convince her to come to the village? Okay then, Sasaki sighed. Why don't we simply ask the Hokage to request her to come here then? He's her sensei after all. I doubt she'd instantly decline it. Nar nodded. Now, what will we do when Akatsuki begins acting up again? Gar was targeted right away. Nar lost his track of words. Damn it, we have to make sure Gar turns good again. That could be a pain. Shukaku underestimated me greatly last time, and that's why I was able to beat him. And this time, if he sees an Inu coming at him with Kyobi's chakra within him, he isn't going to go easy again. Well, Sasaki sighed. Who says you need to look like an Anbu? Just be disguised as a genin and take him on again. True, but who will save the old man? I'll let you go after Shukaku. I'll attempt to save the Hokage this time around. And I'll go with Nar. Shukaku isn't an idiot. He'll feel all the chakra within Naruto and go all out quickly within the fight. Sakura said as she made her way into the conversation. Orochimaru was once your sensei Sasaki, so that means you know all his abilities. Furthermore, he'll be weaker because he hadn't trained as much as us. Sasaki nodded at Sakura, temporarily derailing from the conversation. He asked. Sleep well. Yeah, I have a comfortable pillow, she said, squeezing Nar. Afterwards, she sat up, allowing Nar to. She then leaned against him. Both still had the blanket around them. Anyways, back on topic. Sasaki began. This brings up another problem. Earlier than the Shukaku issue, Orochimaru is going to enter the Chunin exams. Sakura nodded. Yes, but we won't be in that. We'll have to tell the Hokage to allow us to supervise most of it. You really think he'd let us? Naruto asked. I mean, that is a huge responsibility. Hell, let us, Sasaki answered. He knows that we know everything that is going to pass in the next decade or so. Just as long as we try to keep the original timeline somewhat like this one, he'll put all his trust into us three about some of the larger decisions he's going to make. We'll obviously have to have a sort of alternate lifestyle from our Ambu status. We don't want the world to know we're one. So, I suggest that we participate as Chunin supervisors for the exam. We'll be able to make fun of all our friends who enter it. Sakura thought with a gleam in her eye, and it will allow us to track Kabuto. No one spoke for a minute at the mention of that name. Finally, Naruto snarled. I say we just break him apart while he's in the forest of death and blame the death on Orochimaru. I like that plan, Sasaki said, not missing a beat. No, Sakura sighed. Even though he's our enemy, Orochimaru is smart enough to know that if he dies, then someone knows he is around and will possibly retreat from the exams. She turned to Naruto and said, but I like that plan as well. We got the Chunin exams planned out and the Tsunade search, but what will we do about the Wave Country? Sasaki asked. We can't just leave all that to rule and have some unlucky Genin team go into that mission. Sakura thought for a moment and said, we could always further our disguise as Chunin and accept the mission. So, we have a record of some C and B ranked missions in our book. True, Naruto muttered. Okay, what are we going to do about the Sound 5? Naruto asked questionably. You know, the 4 that made you betrayed Konoha and go join that damn Sound village. Then the 5th one showed up and allowed you to run far away to the valley. I don't know. I don't plan on going to join that damn village again. Whenever they appear, I guess we'll just have to kill them as soon as we can. Sakura spoke up saying, if they come thinking you'll betray us and join you, as 3 will take them out. They're strong, but we could beat them if it was as 3 against them 4, and plus they'll be in the village, so we would have help quickly. Nar nodded. Now back to Akatsuki and Gar. Nar's side. They will be taking the tail demons from 1 to 9. I remember they got Gar easily because he was not expecting the attack, and they got all the demons besides mine. Nar was silent for a moment. We'll have to accept any assassination mission that even remotely deals them with. Naruto decided we need to kill them as early as possible so they aren't as strong as they will be later in time. Alright, we have a set plan. Sakura said, getting up and stretching. I am going to take a shower, she simply stated and went away. She wore pink pajamas, a shirt and pants. Nar and Sasaki both wore blue ones. So Naruto said, the mood instantly lightening from what it once was. Why was it that you had pink PJs? Well, Sasaki sighed. Itachi told me this when he was still here. He stopped for a moment. He said once when I asked the same question that mom and dad were expecting me to be a girl. He told me that they bought clothes for me so I would not have to get any new ones until I was like 10 years old. He sighed. Itachi says that they were devastated when they found out I was a boy. Nar was quiet for a moment and then he burst out laughing. Oh my god, that is hilarious. He continued laughing and fell to the floor. Ha man, that is so funny. Sasaki watched with little amusement in his eyes. Ah. Naruto sighed happily. Okay, I'm going to take a shower too, Nar. Sasaki started. That bathroom is the only one around here. Nar looked back with a peace sign. Wish me luck. Really? Nar was all Sasaki could say before he placed his head in his hand and sighed. A moment later, he heard a shout of idiot and the door opened and a huge slam sound as Naruto made contact with the wall. Ouch. Nar muttered as Sasaki walked up to him. Hey, might want to wait another 9 years for that trick. Sasaki sighed. Nerd wed, but that is so far away. Pervert was all Sasaki could say as he made his way to the kitchen. Naruto followed shortly after claiming he was not a pervert. Ooch. The kitchen as Sasake's house was, for lack of better words, big. It had several tables in there and several stoves and other machines. The fridge, as big as it was almost always empty. However, this was all Naruto could look at when he entered. Sasaki, he began, your kitchen is the size of the Fire Country. It could hold millions in it. Yet, you don't have any food in here. Sasaki walked over and said, I am the only one living here now, and this is food. He pulled out some milk and leftover oatmeal from the day before. Naruto stared at it for a moment before saying, as I was saying, do you have real food? Suit yourself, Sasaki muttered as he walked over to a nearby table of the many and began to eat it. Naruto sighed and walked over with a slump in his walk and sat next to Sasaki. He accepted the plate and chopsticks Sasaki offered him and grabbed the bowl and watched the oatmeal slide around in the bowl as he moved it back and forth. He sat it back down and looked at it closely for several minutes. I see nothing bad. He picked up the chopsticks and slowly brought it forward to his mouth and swallowed slowly. Sasaki watched in slight amusement. Well, he asked as he took another bite of the food. Gee, Nar screamed out and fell on the floor. This tastes just like. Sasaki leaned closer and listened. Tastes just like oatmeal. Nar then stopped moving and stayed motionless on the ground. Sasaki watched and after 10 seconds, he asked, Nar, are you alright? Nar didn't even twitch at his words. Nar, he said a little louder. As Sasaki began to get a somewhat worried feeling in him, Sakura entered the room and looked around and saw Sasaki sitting in Naruto on the floor. Hello, she called and rushed over. Sakura-Aiken. Nar instantly got up, ending his act and ran over to her. Please forgive me. He got on his knees and bowed down several times. I was sleepy and I wasn't in full control of myself and I don't know why I did it. Sasaki watched the change from a dead Naruto to a very lively Naruto inside. It is going to be very interesting living with these two. As long as you don't do it again, Nar. Sakura sighed. I'll forgive you. Nar cheered and gave her a hug. The both of them came over and sat with Sasaki. How are you, Sasuke? Sakura asked. Fine, he answered, not saying anything else. Well, Sakura said, we're supposed to be getting ready to head to the academy, yet you two haven't changed out of your pajamas yet. Sakura wore the same clothes she had on the day before, the blue ribbon holding her hair together again. Both boys turned their head and said, screw the academy. Sakura sighed, okay then, what do you two want to do today? Train, Sasaki responded. Naruto took a little bit of time to respond and said, shop for some new clothes. No offense, Sasaki, your clothes are comfortable, but I prefer to have clothes that I know you haven't worn. Good idea, Sakura added. We all should go get some new clothes. A THP pig suddenly crossed her mind. Nar, she turned to him. If you buy that damn orange jumpsuit again, I am going to have to hurt you. Nar backed off and said, hey, who said I was planning on that? You seem to be attracted to idiotic clothing. Sasaki said, well choose. Hey, yeah, Nar said, looking away from both of his friends' eyes. His grin turned to a frown. Well, when will we head out? He quickly covered the frown up with another grin. Both Sakura and Sasuke saw the quick change in expressions, but kept it mostly to themselves. Well, head out now, Sasaki said. Let's go change, Nar. Nar nodded and both left the kitchen, leaving Sakura there. I have a feeling something bad is going to happen, she thought to herself, a frown coming onto her face. Ready to go, Sakura-chan? Nar asked. She got up, not allowing her mind to wander onto other things, and said, yeah, let's go. Konoha Village, Shopping District. The three children were wandering through the shopping district of Konoha. It was a very nice part of the city with stalls lining the street, and at every corner there seemed to be some kind of food cart. Above them were wires where lights hung off of. They'd be turned on at night. The sun was overhead of them, and all the buildings had their items all on display trying to get people to get into their shops. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasaki were all getting the normal glares, but from the younger people, they got looks of confusion. Three children should either be in school or the ninja academy at this time, depending on their profession. Nar led the group, a huge grin on his face. Man, it feels so good to be out here instead of at that boring place. Yeah, Sasaki agreed. He looked over and spotted a nice ninja clothing shop. How about we head in there? He asked. No, I hear it has horrible stuff. Nar stated. Sakura looked skeptical and said, stuff. Yeah, you know, things, materials, all that kind of stuff, he said. Sasaki and Sakura eyed each other. Okay, Sakura muttered. How about that one? She pointed to a pretty fancy one, and Sasuke gulped. He had the most money and had agreed to pay for all of them, but even that would put a dent in what he brought. Nah, Nar said. Sasuke mentally sighed and thanked Nar. Too fancy. But don't we want fancy equipment? Sakura questioned. Nar shook his head. No, We want equipment that won't burden us, not something with so many little gadgets on it that my head would explode if I were to even try to figure out the thing. Okay. Soccer aside, where do you suggest we go? You were after the one that suggested we do this in the first place. Nar thought for a moment, looking at each shop. Well, I hear imported clothing is really good. Nar Sakura smacked him across the head. Why don't you want to go in any of these shops? He sighed and looked down. Well, he looked uncertain of whether to tell them or not. You see, he thought harder. In the other timeline, both of the shops you two pointed out kicked me out when I wanted to get something. I have no reason to think they won't do the same thing in this one. He looked down. The grin that was once on his face was a deep frown. Ah, Sasuke said, I figured it was that well force them to allow you to buy stuff from them. Sakura said, slamming her fist into her other hand. Naruto shook his head. I don't think that would work. When the Hokage brought me to these shops, they sold me low-quality items at a very high price. It wasn't all that worth it. That is how I got the orange jumpsuit. It's not because I wanted it or liked the color orange. Even then, I wasn't that big of an idiot. Well, then, Sasaki muttered, thinking, this is quite the problem. Sakura just smiled. Not at all. She grabbed both boys by the hands and dragged them into the fancy shop. She pointed out. Sasaki nearly felt tears come out of his eyes, thinking of how much this would cost him, and Naruto was squirming, not wanting to get his friends in trouble. She entered the shop and a bell rang throughout the shop. To the left of her was a counter, and all in front of her was endless racks of ninja clothing. On the walls, there were all kinds of weapons being displayed. It was an ideal shop for any ninja. Hello, greeted the man as he walked over to them. He had a kind tone in his voice and he came out with a smile on his face for his customer. He was obviously a retired ninja. He had the stance of one and each step was one that could counter anything thrown at him. Hi, Sakura agreed. She was finally managed to pull both boys in who fell on the floor with a thud. Sasaki landed on top of Nar making him groan in pain. Did you have to be so forceful? Nar wed as Sasaki got off. Well, if you'd have just walked instead of having me drag you, then no, she replied. The man looked at Nar for merely a second and then the kindness of his figure turned to one of hate. What are you doing in here? Nar had no idea what to say, but luckily for him, Sakura came to the rescue. He's here to buy some ninja gear. Is that a problem for you and the Uchiha? I have no problems, he eyed Nar. For that brat, though, I wouldn't allow him to leave here with anything. How could you say that about one of the future ninja of this village? Sakura demanded angrily. He's going to assist in village affairs and you just shove him off. The man looked down at the girl. Listen, girl, I don't let bloodthirsty creatures into my shop and give him weapons to kill others with. He obviously wanted to intimidate her, as was obvious with his glare, but she glared right back at him, although it wasn't as threatening as it was cute. Listen, man, she said, mocking him. This bloodthirsty creature is one day going to save you, so I suggest you allow him to get whatever he needs here so he can actually be effective in helping you. The man got annoyed at this point and snarled. Shouldn't you be in school or something? Didn't your mother ever teach you to respect your elders? You got that elders part right. She huffed and crossed her hands. Come on, all we want to do is buy some new equipment, and we'll never bother you again. The man seemed to consider it for a moment and sighed. Fine, go buy whatever you want, damn demon lover. He sneered at her. You got that right. She hugged Naruto tightly and the man looked on in anger. The three of them wandered towards the back of the shop. Okay, we're all pretty small, so we need to go somewhere over here. Sakura wandered through the places, guiding both boys who were unfamiliar in the arts of shopping. Here we are. She found a spot with plenty of clothing that could fit them all. We need something that we can be stealthy with and will last us a couple of years. Sasaki muttered, searching through it all. And no jumpsuits, he said mostly towards Nar. Nar just sent him a glare and continued searching. Here's something he said as he pulled out a shirt along with some pants. Both were black and had slots around the wrist and feet where weights could be put in. There was a belt around it that could hold all kinds of equipment. This looks pretty cool. I could probably make this last a couple years. Sasaki nodded. I didn't think you had a good fashion sense. Nar, it looks great. Nar, Sakura said as she took a second to admire it and then go searching for her own clothing. Sasaki wasted no time and chose an outfit pretty similar to Naruto's. Sakura sighed, weights are so overrated. She muttered as both Naruto and Sasuke began to argue who would be able to wear more weight than the other. However, she paused and thought about Lee. You know, maybe they're not so overrated after all. Sasaki and Naruto waited a minute for Sakura. That minute quickly became 2, then 10, then 20. Soon, an hour had passed, and there was still no sign of Sakura finishing. Okay. Women take too long to shop. Nar groaned. For once, I actually agree with you. Sasaki moaned. They waited a few more minutes until she came to them holding a suit that was too similar to theirs. You guys think this looks okay? It's almost the exact same thing we're getting, Naruto muttered, getting a glare from her. He straightened up and said, yes, looks wonderful, if I do say myself. I thought so, she said. A smile was on her face. Okay, let's get out of here, she said. Both followed her again to the front of the shop. Sasaki walked forward and grabbed his wallet and asked, how much is it all? The same man from earlier was there and said, 60,000 ryu. 60,000? Sasaki asked, his eyes widening for a bit. That's a bit much, he said suspiciously. Don't have the money, the man smiled. Then get out and give me those back. He held out his hand expectantly. That bastard, Sasaki thought to himself. He sighed inwardly. What's the real price? He said, putting emphasis on the word real. That is the real price. The man sneered. Naruto had enough. He jumped up to his feet and jumped at the man. He climbed onto his chest and got a grip on the collar of his shirt and snarled in his face. Damn you. I waited over an hour. We don't have time to waste like this. He gathered chakra into his eyes and opened them, showing a red hue. Now lower the damn price, he said in his demonic, a voice he could muster with the demon chakra active within him. This definitely got the desired result. The man let out a short scream and Nar got off him. You can have it all for free. Just get out of here, demon. He shouted, throwing the gear at Nar and his two friends. Sasaki placed some money on the counter. Anyways, thanks, he said. Out. The man shouted as loud as he could. I am going to report this directly to the Hokage. The demon is getting control. The three children hurried out of the shop as quickly as possible in fear that the man may scream at them again, alerting others. Once they ran a fair distance away, Sakura turned towards Naruto and smacked him hard across the head. What the hell did you think you were doing? Well, I think I would have snapped a long time ago if I were in his shoes. Sasaki added as a side thought. Though, I think that may come back and bite us in the later. Nar snorted. Who cares if anyone does anything to you too? Even if it's a small thing, I'm going to kick there. At least we got the clothes for a lower price. Yeah, Sakura sighed, free. Nar patted her on the back. Want to go get ramen? No, Nar, just because you didn't eat breakfast with us this morning doesn't mean I am willing to pay for you. Sasaki said and turned round the corner. The three of them were on a narrow stretch of road. Wooden fences lined the sides of both sides of the road and some benches were along them as well. As they continued down, Naruto couldn't help but say, I feel as though we're being followed. Being trained by Jiraiya definitely had its benefits. Naruto was able to hone his skills in more than the 3 jutsu each ninja was required to know. He was able to feel if he was being followed whenever a set of eyes looked at him long enough it felt as though the hair on his neck would begin to stand. Yeah, I feel it too. Sasaki whispered. Sakura simply nodded her agreement. What should we do? Nar asked as they walked, not facing the direction that the people surely were. They all looked at one another and decided that it would be best if they just stayed silent, hoping for the best. When they were about to reach the end of the road they were on, several Ambu members jumped in front of them. 5 members stood there, all in their black robes with masks on. The one in the lead was one wearing a dog mask. Utsuaki, Uchaya, Haruno, you 3 must come with us. He spoke out with authority in his voice. The Hokage will see you 3 little spies. What are you talking about? Sasaki asked with a questionable look on his face. He looked down at the clothes they recently bought and went, oh, I paid for these. It's just the owner was screaming so loud he probably missed it. Here, I'll pay you some for the trouble. He grabbed his wallet. The Anbu simply swatted away his wallet, his voice still as emotionless as it was before. No jokes now. Come with us. The 3 eyed each other. Okay, Sakura said, we don't want any trouble. Nar and Sasuke knew that she was right. There was no way they could beat these guys in their current state. So, they lowered their guard and allowed the Anbu to surround them and begin to escort them to the Hokage Tower. They jumped on top of the buildings and began to go at unimaginable speeds. Nar and Sakura glanced at each other worriedly. What the hell? Doesn't the old man trust us? Nar thought angrily to himself. I figured we gave enough proof as it is. They made it to the tower and walked in. They went down the halls. No one speaking to one another. All 3 of the children kept their emotions in check. To be a successful ninja, one must never show his or her emotions, even if death is certain. Of course, Nar and Sakura both occasionally broke this rule, like when they were about to die. Nar snapped from his thoughts of that rule and looked ahead. They stood in front of the door of the Hogue's office. Time to find out what you want, old man. Nar thought as they were led into the room with the Hokage sitting there. He looked up at them and smiled. Hello. It's nice to see you here in a timely fashion. He said happily. He looked at the Anbu. You all can leave now. They all began to walk out before he called out. Hold on, you. He said, pointing at the one with the dog mask on. Stay here. Seems this isn't what I thought it was going to be, Sasuke thought to himself. What do you desire, Hokage-sama? He said, bowing down to the person. Sasaki, Naruto, and Sakura all walked to the left of the room as the Hokage got up and put up silencing seals and the chakra seals from the last time he spoke with the children. Kakashi, the Hokage spoke evenly. You said you were to quit being in Ambu within a month. Correct. Sakura and Naruto looked up instantly. Kakashi-sensei. They said in disbelief. Sasaki just had a curious look in his eyes. The man took his mask off and the silver hair, the forehead protector going over the left eye and the masks were all the same as they remembered it. I assume you trust these three if you're using my name. Yes, Kakashi, Sarubi said as he walked forward. As your last mission as an Andu agent, I want you to spend the next year training these three in the art of being an Andu agent. Kakashi looked down at the three children, then back up to the man and said, okay, you're pulling my leg right. They're only 9. I mean, sure, Naruto and Sasuke can both use Cage Bunch, a high-level forbidden jutsu. He got lost in thought. And Sakura can do medical jutsu, which I didn't even know they taught at the academy. Sensei, Sakura was going to say, but was cut off by the man himself. Why do you keep calling me your sensei? A curious look in his eye. I haven't even accepted the mission yet. Sasaki decided to speak up now in the old timeline. That's who you were to us in our Gen team. What are you talking about? He finally asked. Kakashi Serbi said, what you know here is an S-class secret. No one must know of what you will learn today. Kakashi nodded. These three used some complex jutsu to come back in time to change this timeline. They know what is supposed to come, but they don't want to change anything too drastically. I'm sure you've already spotted some differences with them already. Kakashi was silent. I see. Well, the Haruno girl was all over the Uchiha here, but seemed to have a change of heart overnight. They know some complex jutsu, and I can feel lots of raw chakra coming off of all of them. If you don't believe us, ask us any question about you in the future decade or so, and well it. Sakura said with an all-knowing grin on her face. Fine, he thought for a moment. If you all became my genin team, what was the test I conducted? Sakura answered, saying, you wanted us to get bells from you. Problem was that there were only 2. The real goal of the test was to see our teamwork skills. In the end, Sasaki and I end up breaking the rules you set to help Naruto and you passed us. Kakashi nodded. Sounds just like my sensei's test. Anything else? Sasaki asked. Kakashi sighed. If you know so much about me, why not tell me my whole life story? Nar nodded. That's easy. You were teamed up with the 4th Hokage, an Uchiha named Obito, and a girl named Ren. You were recently promoted, and it was your turn to lead the mission. Of course, your teammates were supposed to get you some presents or something like that, and Obito didn't have any. Naruto checked to see if Kakashi was paying attention. He was in the end. The enemy ninja capture Ren and Obito goes to save her. You lose your left eye. And while in the cave, Ren was in the enemy ninja tried to crush you all. Unfortunately, only you and Ren got out unharmed. Sakura continued. Obito was about to die just after activation his sharing. He decides to give it to you as a present for being promoted and dies shortly after. Ren goes away after that mission and that's why you visit that rock every day. When she finished Kakashi's side and asked, that's a story that I usually don't tell many people. What was the occasion on which I told you? Nar and Sakura looked around a little uncertain of whether to say or not. Well, Naruto mumbled. When we went to go save Sasaki there, we ran into some difficulties and you got injured. Sakura aside, badly. Kakashi just nodded. No need to say more. This was all new to Sasaki. He had never heard of Kakashi's past, and he now heard that he was responsible for the death of his sensei. He looked down, some sadness in his eyes. Sorry guys, I won't let him get me this time. Naruto and Sakura both nodded towards Sasaki, expecting him to live up to that. Kakashi sighed and said, Hokage-sama, I accept this mission. Good Kakashi, I knew that they'd change your mind. He looked down at a document in his hands and said, they'll be ready to begin an Ambu training whenever you see fit. Making out a schedule for them should be your first priority. They all have different strengths in different areas and you need to get them all set for when they are to begin training to harness their massive chakra. Okay, Kakashi said, well, begin training at the end of the week. You three better be ready, he said, turning to the children because I will not go easy on you. Today was the day. Finally, they would begin their training that would allow them to become strong enough to be able to actually do something to assist the village in its time of despair in the upcoming events that were going to soon pass. They wouldn't be useless for anyone, would be a valuable resource to the village, and be able to save all those that die, including Old Man Hokage. Naruto smiled at his reflection. Never before had he wanted to simply go to Sasaki and give him a kiss straight on the lips for allowing them a chance to do this. Actually, I don't want to do that. He looked back towards his reflection and looked himself over. He was finally wearing the suit that they had bought from the man a few days ago to train with. He put the mask up and covered his mouth. I wonder how Kakashi can do this for so long. His had all his kunai and projectiles taped to his right leg and his belt was empty of all things, though he planned to add some survival scrolls into it. If he were to fight at night, the enemy would never know where he came from. When I get strong enough, I'll save everyone this time. His thoughts commonly went back to the Hokage that they were serving under at the moment. Sasaki says this is a different timeline and that nothing is going to go the same here. He walked out of the bathroom he was in feeling refreshed. Sasaki and Sakura were not in sight. So, he began to walk down the hallway where he knew the kitchen was. A small snack wouldn't hurt. Sasaki should have something else besides oatmeal. He gagged at the thought of eating that again. He entered the kitchen and walked over to the various counters around the place. He finally spotted some cereal, which was not his favorite, but it would have to do. He'd eat the tasteless stuff, even if it wasn't ramen. It was like Sasaki and Sakura were trying to keep him away from ramen. All week since they got here, they have always suggested something else when he attempted to go there. Hold on. His eyes narrowed. I see what's going on here. He wanted to be angry at his friends, but only a smile found its way to his face. Meh, maybe it won't stop my growth as people say. He chuckled a little and grabbed the cereal and some milk and walked to a table. Well, Kakashi didn't say where to meet him, so I guess I'll wait here. I wonder where Sakura-chan and Sasaki are, he muttered to himself and took a bite of the cereal in front of him. He gagged slightly from the flavor. What is this? He looked over the box of cereal and nearly cried. Damn you, Sasaki. Does everything you eat have to be healthy? It was simply a cereal brand that added too much fruit to the mix of dry wheat. Just what Naruto hated. Okay, this stuff sucks. I need to find something else. Knowing he wouldn't find anything here, he got up and walked out of the house, not bothering to put the food away. He was sure Sasaki would thank him later for that. Well, see you later, house. He said, knowing nothing would respond from the outside of it anyway. Konoha Ninja Academy. Tell Naruto I am so proud of him. To get so good in such a short period of time, then to have the sharing Kakashi be his genin instructor. He is going to make it far. Iruka praised his favorite student. Surbi had told Iruka and the class the backup story that they created. They being Sasuke, Naruto, Sakura, Kakashi, and himself. They said the three of them were good enough to be on their own team already at such a young age and can begin missions. Of course, the class and Iruka immediately bought it because it was coming from the mouth of the Hokage. They were in the Ninja Academy classroom. Sasaki and Sakura were called by Iruka to pick some things up, but Naruto was sleeping, so they decided to leave him at the home. Both wore their new outfits, all fitting perfectly in place. He can't do much harm, Sasuke thought to himself. But there was a little bit of doubt in his mind, though. Class, Iruka shouted, getting their attention. As you all know, Naruto, Sasaki, and Sakura have all passed class 3 years earlier than planned, so I'd like you all to give a round of applause for them. Very few people clapped. A child stood up and yelled, why did Naruto pass? That dead last just got lucky against Sasaki. Sakura nodded along before saying, he's much better than you. Her glare caused him to sit back down and not say another word. Nar, Sasaki began, is my equal. None of you can match up to him. Sakura is the smartest person I know besides you, Shikamaru. Shikamaru raised his head and barely gave any acknowledgement. And she is better in genjutsu than Naruto and I and can also use medical jutsus. He stopped and gathered in another breath. If any of you think you're deserving of graduating early, you'll have to beat one of us to prove it. Right after he said that most of the people wanted to challenge Naruto and Sakura. They all knew Sasaki was the best in the class and didn't both fighting him, but the other two the class was very unsure about. Enough, Iruka shouted. The class went silent again and Iruka said, Sasuke, Sakura, give this to Nar. He handed them a forehead protector, and you too can have these. He handed them 2 different forehead protectors. I am proud of you, too. Sakura gave the man a hug. Thanks, Oruka-sensei. He was shocked slightly at first, but hugged her back. You too, I'll miss you 3. Sasaki waved his hand behind him as he began to walk out and Sakura followed. Right before they walked out of the door, Oruka called out. Make sure Naruto doesn't get into any trouble. I'll make sure of that. Sakura shouted back and walked out. Oruka sighed as they left and turned to the class. Ready? He asked happily. No. Most of the class responded back. Great. Oruka shouted. Now let's begin. He turned to the board behind him and began to write multiple things. Ikyaku ramen stand. Another bowl, old man. Nar shouted as he drank the last bit of the ramen broth. He put the bowl in the growing stack next to him. He sighed and leaned back slightly. This tastes so much better when you've not gone with it for almost half a week. Tuki smiled at Nar. For a minute, I had thought you've abandoned ramen. Nar gasped way over dramatically and screamed, I would never do such a thing. Another bowl was placed in front of him and the speech he was about to say became void as he dug into it. I love ramen was all that was running through his head at that moment. So Naruto, I heard you became a genin today at such a young age. I am so proud of you, the man said while preparing the child's next order, which the child didn't make just yet, but he knew the boy more than most would know. Yeah, Nar said. How do you know? Tuki turned to the child. A group of people came here complaining about it and ordered some ramen. He said, his face frowning. He leaned towards Naruto and said, don't tell anyone this, but I charge them a little extra for complaining. You're awesome, old man. Nar laughed as he finished the next bowl, and Anuchi replaced the bowl with another one. Thanks. I know you, Naruto. I am guessing you'll be getting. He examined the stack about 3 or 4 more before you get full and stop. Nar snorted. Ha, yeah, right, I'll eat until I burst. Sure you will. Tuki sighed. So Nar, how do you become a genin? Exactly. Nar swallowed a bundle of noodles and replied, Kakashi-sensei watched us while we sparred at the academy. Seeing how much cooler and advanced we were, he decided to have us graduate early and teach us things that could really help us. Oh, he said, not bad, Nar. I'd think getting the attention of Kakashi would require a lot of skill. Naruto nodded. Oh yeah, who were your 2 teammates? The people didn't exactly give me details on who else passed. Sasaki and Sakura. They're the 2 I introduced to you a few days ago. He looked both left and right before leaning in and saying, between you and me, I think they're trying to prevent me from coming here. Every time I suggest this place, they quickly come up with something else and drag me away. Sasaki only has gross stuff in his house, like healthy crap. Naruto looked bitter. The look on Tuki's face was one of disgust. They force you to not eat ramen. That's he looked up and screamed. Horrible. How could they torture any poor soul like that? I know. Nar shouted back. It's like they want me to die or something. Tuki's hand slammed on the bar. I ought to get them here and force some ramen right down their throats. He made several bowls of ramen himself and sat next to Nar. Listening to that horrible story makes me desire to taste ramen to make sure nothing bad will happen to me. He began eating as he placed another bowl in front of Naruto. This one is on the house. Both of them lifted up their chopsticks and shouted for the ramen. They began eating it at speeds unimaginable to all mankind. Nar, are you in there? Sakura asked from outside the place. She entered along with Sasaki. Nar, do you know where Kakashi might be? She's the woman, Tuki asked. Nar nodded quickly. You, how dare you take the power of ramen away from this young boy? What will guide him through the future generations? What? She asked slightly confused. You heard him. You have been keeping me away from the power of the ramen. But not anymore. I am in control of this now, and you will do as I ask. Naruto proclaimed. Now, Tuki rolled over the counter and grabbed the 2 bowls of ramen and threw them at the 2 children. This better work. Both dodged the bowls and heard sound of things breaking in the background. What the hell is up with you, Nar? Sasaki asked. A twitch was visible in his eyebrow. Old man, they avoided the ramen. Nar shouted, slamming his hands on the bar. What will we do? Who could have guessed 2 gifted children could dodge 2 bowls that one threw with an old hand that was at least going at speeds of 10 miles per hour? Tuki sighed. I can't stand to look at you, Nar. I have failed you. No, old man, it is I that has failed you. Please accept this. He pulled out a huge wad of cash. Please, it is the only way to restore my honor in the ramen. Tuki sighed and said, Nar, honor cannot be bought back by money. You must fight for it. He turned him to Sakura and said, now do as your destiny has told you to do. What? I didn't think they were so close. Sakura thought. If I'd have known that I wouldn't have kept them from each other. Nar, she sighed. I am sorry I have kept you from coming here. I didn't think you two were this close to each other. So, you'll let me come here now? Nar asked, hope evident in his voice. She looked at the stack of bowls he had and turned slightly green before saying, only if you cut the amount of ramen you have by 16 bowls. 6. Nar counted the bowls that he had and said, that only leaves me with 3 bowls. He sighed, okay, I guess that's the best I can get out of her, old man. He turned to the man and showed a peace sign with his hands. I hope that has restored my honor. Tuki nodded. It's enough, my boy. It's enough. He gave Naro a hug and said, don't get hurt during any of your missions, Naruto, or I'll have to kick you so you'll know better. Nar nodded while in his friend's arms. Yeah, you better not close up anytime soon or I'll come and kick your. Tuki let go of Nar and said, go far, Nar. Am I interrupting something? Kakashi asked, looking with an amused smile at his new students. We were just going out to look for you, Nar said. He turned back to Tuki and said, thank you for everything. He bowed, showing respect to him and began to leave. Nar, I meant what I said earlier. Tuki shouted, don't get hurt. Don't worry about it, old man. Nar shouted back, a grin on his face again. Once that exchange was done with, Kakashi jumped to the rooftops to see how well his students could keep up with him. To his pleasure, they were able to do this with relative ease, though he wasn't going as fast as he usually would. You're close to him, Nar, Kakashi observed. I always have been, Nar confirmed. Nothing else was said as they made their way to the training fields. Training fields. The 4 of them got there in a timely fashion. Kakashi checked on his students to see how they were holding up. Sakura was on the ground breathing heavily while Sasaki and Naruto were holding on to their knees. His panting. This sucks, Naruto muttered. I could run faster than that for almost a day before I even got exhausted. All in due time, Nar. Kakashi said, if you 3 really do come from the future, I think you know what Ambu testing is like. The 3 children looked up at him in horror. No, I'm not going to give it to you now. That would be way too much strain on your little bodies. Okay, then why did you mention it? Sasuke asked shakily, standing back up. Kakashi nodded and said, at the end of the year, I am going to give it to you 3. If you each can equal me or surpass me one-on-one, then you'll become an Andu agent. If you're below my skill, another year until the next test. All 3 looked shocked. Another year, Naruto shouted. Why so long? Motivation. Sakura answered, we can't fall behind. And I have a feeling Kakashi-sensei is serious here. Kakashi grinned. Right you are. He pulled out some kunai and said, you say you need to regain control of your chakra. The best way to do that is doing all the exercises from bottom to top. He threw the kunai at their feet and said, get to work. The 3 nodded, knowing what to do. They turned to the trees surrounding them and began to climb up. Sakura was again the first one to easily get up to the top within seconds. Nar and Sasaki unfortunately were not so fortunate. 1, 2, 1, 2. Naruto was saying as he placed one foot after another on the tree as he climbed up it. Suddenly the bark exploded under his foot about halfway up the tree and he fell. He quickly recovered in midair and landed on his feet. Damn it! Much better than last time. Nar, Sakura called from above. Sasaki was having as much success as Nar. He got a little above the halfway point and the bark exploded under his foot as well. When he landed on his feet, Kakashi came up. Sakura, since you have this down, I want you to continue walking up and down until you're exhausted. To gain more control of chakra, it is required to be able to use more chakra. The 3 nodded at his logic. It seems you 3 are going to be finished with this exercise a lot faster than I realized. Sasaki, Naruto, when you both get it down, I want you to do just what I instructed Sakura to do. Yes, Kakashi-sensei. Both boys said, what Kakashi said held true. Nar and Sasaki were easily able to get it down within the hour. He made them walk upside down and such, and before they knew it, they were all exhausted and out of chakra to manipulate. The 3 of them sat back to back of each other in a small triangular shape. Well, Kakashi said, you 3 are going to do well. Tomorrow, we'll begin the physical training. You need to be in top shape to be an Ambu agent. The 3 could only groan. They never knew Kakashi could actually be serious while training people. Is that all for today? Sakura groaned. Yep. Come back here tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, he said and teleported away in a whirl of leaves. The 3 sighed. Well, I don't think I'm going anywhere. Naruto sighed. Sasaki groaned. We have to eat something and drink something. I'm thirsty as hell. Drink your spit. Nar replied. Nar. I think that actually makes you thirstier than you already are. Sakura explained. We have to move. Kakashi wants us to be able to get some good rest and get something to eat so our energy is restored. I think I'll be able to get some rest fine here. Naruto said, leaning into Sakura. You're comfortable enough. Okay, let's go, Sasaki said, but he fell on deaf ears. Naruto, I think it's only right for a man to allow a woman to be the one to have a pillow. Sakura giggled slightly despite her exhausted nature. Nar snorted. Oh, but you're so soft. Please, Sasaki called, trying to end it before it truly began. You like it? Sakura asked, a smile on her face. Well, if we get home, you can rest on me then. Really? Naruto asked, sitting up straight. What about all that stuff about how a man should be a woman's pillow? Are you guys even talking about sleeping on each other anymore? Sasaki sighed. Sasake's right, Nar. Sakura stood up slowly and Nar fell on the ground where she sat. She fell down on top of him. However, my feet hurt. She pouted as she slid off Naruto's chest. Want me to carry you? Nar offered. Sakura giggled. I thought you'd never ask. He shakily got up and stood low so she could get on his back. She complied and got on. Sasaki stood up and sighed. You two know that ignoring me is quite rude. You say something, Sasaki, Naruto asked, glancing at him. Thanks for being quiet with that moment between me and Sakura. We're glad you didn't interfere. Right, Sasaki said, eye twitching once again. That's what a friend's for. The three of them went home like that, and as soon as they got to the room they usually sleep, they all collapsed on the same couch. Training areas. Next day, Kakashi watched as his students slowly walked forward. All of them were rested and have eaten and were ready for a new day of training. You all look well, he said with a sadistic glint in his eyes. Shall we begin now? The three children looked at each other with uncertainty in their eyes. You won't kill us, right? Nar asked. I mean, you're here on time, and that's weird enough. Depends if you're too slow. He simply answered. Yesterday, when we were running here, you three lagged behind a little over halfway here. So, I plan to increase your agility a little bit. I want you to run several laps around this place. However, you could stop at any time. So, to motivate you, I will do this. He produced a scroll and summoned several rather large dogs. Here they are. You. Sakura started wouldn't, Sasaki continued. Dare, Naruto concluded. Kakashi smiled at his students' terrified looks. Oh, but I would. Boys, the dogs perked up. I'd like you to all chase them and make sure they don't lag behind while they run around this training field. You have my permission to harm them as you will if they do. All the large dogs seemed to grin at that, and their tails began to wag quickly. Nice doggy, Nar whispered. Begin. Kakashi announced, I'll be right here. He pulled out a book and his students didn't even have to look at it to know what it was. This lasted for several hours. Of course, Kakashi knew his students would eventually fall behind far enough so his dogs could get them, but he a secret hand sign his dogs would look out for so they knew when to lay off. His students didn't know of this, but what they didn't know would only help them improve over time. Okay, Kakashi called as he came into the clearing again. The dogs disappeared and all three of them collapsed as soon as they knew nothing was going to bite their legs off as soon as they slowed down. Each fell down too exhausted to even say a thing at the moment. You three did excellent. Tomorrow we'll go back to chakra control exercises and then we'll switch back to physical things. We'll continue this for about 2 or so months and then we'll begin to individually train you in your strengths. So be prepared for some difficult times ahead of you. True to what he said, they did have to go through very difficult times. They had to learn how to water walk, which took them a little bit longer than tree walking. Then they had to learn how to do it simply with hands and no feet. The physical part of the training wasn't much easier. It could probably be considered harder by some. Kakashi had them running some days and lifting things the other and Sakura was not allowed to use her super strength abilities with this. Kakashi didn't lead them on any missions during this time for his Ambu in training needed to do exactly as the mission stated to train. They of course were beginning to pass through the chakra exercises when they were slowly but surely getting control of their chakra back and their physical exercises were becoming easier on them as well. Finally, after 3 months, Kakashi had called them to a small meeting with the Hokage. None of his students knew what they were expected to do, but they followed their sensei's orders without question, like any Ambu would do. In the Hokage office, they all sat together. Kakashi standing in front of the desk of the Hokage behind it, and the 3 Ambu in trainings all sat in chairs behind Kakashi. I'm glad to see you all, the Hokage said as he straightened himself on his seat and looked up from all the paperwork he was doing. What's their strength at the moment? Kakashi Hokage-sama. They're advancing faster than I expected, but I believe it's because they have the chakra within them. They just need to control it. However, they're gaining much better control over it and their physical status is much better than how embarrassingly bad it was a few months ago. I see, Kakashi. And what rank would you put them at right now? The Hokage asked. Interested, Kakashi thought for a moment before saying, if they were to all go at me at once, I believe I would be the one to fall, but individually they're all mid-chun about. I see, Sarutobi said. He turned to the three and said, I guess you're wondering why you're here. Yeah, Sakura admitted. It just looks like Kakashi is giving you a status report. Naruto and Sasaki nodded in agreement with their teammate. That's what that was. Yes. He paused and looked proud and said, as you all know, Anbu cannot go around in public claiming who they are. They need a second identity. And rather than give you all D-rank missions that do little to increase your skill, I have decided to promote you all to tune in and allow you all to begin doing C or B rank missions. Nar looked thrilled, as did Sakura. Sasaki just grinned happily. Really, old man? Nar went and hugged him. Thank God. I had nightmares about doing D-rank missions and now I don't have to do them at all. He said gleefully, I'm glad you're happy, Nar. Serbi smiled and pulled Nar off of him. Here are all the available missions you can do. He grabbed a folder that was full of papers and laid them across the table. All the C and B rank missions we have for Chunin. It's funny. Last time we never became a Chunin team before I left. Now we're a Chunin team years before we became a Genin team. He hid his smile and looked through the missions with the rest of them. Nar eyed another folder and grabbed it and stealthily went away from the group without them noticing. All besides Serbi, however, but he simply allowed him to continue on, paying no heed to him. Well, Sakura said, looking through the missions. This one looks interesting. It was an escort mission to Suna. We may be able to find Gar. The mission was ranked C. Sasaki picked one up as well and read through it. This is where people claim Itachi has been recently. He had heard off some gossiping people one day after training of a ninja wearing a black cloak with red clouds on it. Sasaki as usual connected it with Itachi. The mission itself was a protection mission for some rich family and was ranked as B. Which missions do you all desire to do? The Hokage asked kindly. This one. Sakura and Sasaki slammed each other papers on the desk and yelled at the same time. When they realized that both of them said it, they glared towards each other. We're doing this one, Sakura said. It's an escort mission to Suna and Insuna as Gar. As you know, he's kind of insane right now if I remember correctly. So, if we go there and make him sane again, he could become a huge help during the Chunin exams in several years. Sasaki sighed. That damn organization, Akatsuki, has been spotted here. If we go there, we may be able to find Itachi. It was just a lead, and we don't even know if Itachi would be the one to be there if we did go there. What if it was someone like Hedon or Sasori? We'd be in huge trouble. I doubt you could convince them to try and join us, though. We're not even sure if you could do that with Itachi. What? Sasaki yelled, glaring at her. Gar is hardly important. He will join us in due time. Right now, gaining a potential ally out of my brother, or even kill one of them would really help us in the future. You didn't hear what I just said, did you? Sakura yelled. If we go there, we will be killed. You may have forgotten, but Akatsuki is full of S-class criminals, and with as powerful as we are now, they could easily just look at us and well die. Sasaki shouted, if we try to convert Gar now, what would the case Cage do? He'd obviously think we're trying to take away his damn toy, and relations with Suna would become worse than they already are. Kakashi and Serbi both watched on with amusement and were kind of disturbed. When two 9-year-olds fight about a mission in such detail, it was hard to take any of it seriously, especially when their voices began to get higher in anger. I got it, Nar shouted as he snatched a paper out of the folder he was skimming through. He ran to the desk and slammed in above both Sasha's and Sakura's and got in between both of them and said, we need to do this one. All the other four in the room looked at the paper. And shrank assassination mission? Serbi questioned. Sakura and Sasaki both had a much more reasonable mission beside the fact that they wanted to do it for different purposes. No, you don't get it. Read what it wants us to do. He pointed at the text on the paper. Naruto Sakura sighed, grabbing the folder that he got the paper from. These are discarded missions, usually qualified as unsafe or may injure stability issues with other nations or simply underpaying. No, Sasaki looked through the one Naruto picked. We're doing this. Our client wants us to eliminate a so-called crime lord in the Wave Country. Kakashi said, looking through it over his students' shoulders. Gao Sakura said that moment, that's perfect. Did Suna give out this mission again? She asked. Grabbing the page from her friend's hand and reading it over, she let it slip from her hands as she read the name of the client. Kaisa. Who's that again? Sasaki asked after a moment of silence. My memory is a little off. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. Sakura sighed and said, remember the little brat, Inari? Yeah, Nar said he's the kid whose grandpa couldn't stop saying super to save his life. Anyway, Sakura said he's his dad. Well, not necessarily his dad, but a father figure to the boy. Saratobi chose to come in now, saying, I assume you three know how this situation with Gao will turn out. Care to explain? Gao is a crime lord. He went to Wave Country to take all their money away. I think by now, he'd have been there for a little more than a month. In about a week, he will kill Kaisa and completely destroy the bravery of the people. We're going to prevent his death, Sakura explained. You're playing God, Kakashi said, eyes widened when he realized the plan. No, this is a different timeline. Nothing is set in stone. We can do what we want without any consequences occurring because it was fated to happen. Sasaki explained. Serbi nodded. Are you sure you want to do this? You're abandoning your chances to possibly find your brother Sasaki and help this Gar child. Sasaki was right. It would hurt our relation with the sand too much. Sakura admitted. And Sakura was right as well. Death isn't an option for us right now. Sasaki explained. This is an S-rank mission, but what you're planning to do will put your lives at risk. Serbi said. The others looked on, fearing that he'd not let them do it. But I fear if I say no to you, you'll do it anyways. He grinned at them. Kakashi said you three could take him down if you fought together. He may travel alone, but you three must stick together. They may have some high-ranked missing ninja on their team. Kakashi, protect them well. Serbi simply said, you are dismissed. I expect a successful mission report here by 2 weeks. Kakashi turned to his team. Okay, get ready within 10 minutes. We'll begin heading towards the Wave Country and meet our client there. The three were about to leave, but Kakashi called again. Nar. Yes, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi looked towards the floor. I am sorry that I once thought you were the demon within you. He bowed down towards Nar. Don't worry, Kakashi. You'd have gotten over it in 2 years anyways. Nar smiled. See you in front of the gates. He just rubbed off my apology. Kakashi sighed. He's a good kid. Saratobi called from behind Kakashi. Kakashi, do not let them get harmed in any way. They are the strength of the village at the moment. If one were to die, our future could be ruined. They are playing with this timeline. They know fate won't kill those that they end up saving, and this could be both bad and good. We'll need them here to help our village from any future misfortunes. Serbi looked on at Kakashi with a serious look. I will not fail, Kakashi simply answered. When Kakashi disappeared within a swirl of leaves, Serbi leaned against the back of his chair. Sometimes I forget that they are not simply children, that their minds work like an adult's would. It's both unfortunate and fortunate for them. Konoha front gates. The forest of the Fire Country was much different than the name of the country would suggest. First of all, it's not at all on fire. Secondly, it was a forest, meaning lots and lots of green and trees. This was good for the ninja of Konoha as it allowed them to travel quickly between their towns. 3 children all gathered together just as their sensei began to come. Kakashi walked forth not late once again. You guys ready to go? Getting over how he was yet again early, they all replied saying, yes, Kakashi-sensei. Good. We have a 2-week deadline. Let's make the most of our time. We're going to be there by tomorrow. Kakashi ran forward and quickly jumped in the trees. No sooner than he did, the 3 children followed suit. Kakashi-sensei, Nar asked nervously. In the old timeline, you were always late for everything, usually hours late. But now, well, you're really quick, almost early. Kakashi nodded. Yes, when it comes to training and protecting the very future of our village. I will do what it takes to do so. Saratobi trusts me in training you 3, so you may advise us on what to do in the future. We may make a fatal mistake, but we'll trust you 3 when it comes to the important situations. He trusts us that much. Sakura asked a little surprised. Kakashi nodded. You 3 have proven that you are indeed from the future, and all the things you told Serbi made him worried about his choices. Of course, Hell still to them, but Hell want you 3 there to correct his mistakes that he made in your old timeline. Ah, it makes sense now. Sasaki sighed. I worked with Orochimaru and I know all his strategies, and Akatsuki will not kill so many of our ninja as well, and will be able to advise him on what to do during the Chunin exams that will be held in our village in 3 years. When you can, Naruto said, appoint Shikamaru's father as the village's advisor. He's the smartest person I know of. His son is almost just as smart, if not more so. He could lead us out of anything. The three continued through the forest at high speeds until they finally stopped in a relatively small clearing. Nar and Sakura both unrolled their sleeping bags side by side, and Sasaki and Kakashi were on the opposite side of the both of them on the other side of the fire they had built. Kakashi and Sasaki both agreed to do lookout duty for the night. Sasaki would go first and then Kakashi would do it for the rest of the night. Sasaki leaned against a tree a fair distance away from all his companions inside. I hate guard duty. Everyone does it first. Sasaki jumped and pulled out a kunai from his pouch strapped to his right leg and brought it straight up to defend from the attacker. Fortunately, it was just Kakashi. Don't do that, Sasaki sighed. You were too relaxed, Sasaki. When guarding your allies, you must always be on high alert. The smallest of noises you must make sure is not an ambush. Kakashi criticized. Sasaki had an annoyed expression on his face. We're not even being chased by anyone. There's no point to being highly alerted. Sasaki, you always have to be highly alert, no matter what the cause is. There could have been a spy in the village that overheard our mission, or a group of bandits might come across us as we sleep. As unlikely as any of these events are, you always have to be highly alert on lookout duty. Sasaki nodded. I am sorry. No need to apologize. Just don't make the mistake again. Of course, Sasaki answered and then asked, what did you mean by what you said earlier? What did I say earlier? You said everyone hates guard duty at first. Why at first? For starters, it allows me to think about things. I can listen to nature and feel like an essential part of the team. Of course, there are the downfalls of which you always have to be alert and that you lose sleep, but everything in life has drawbacks. I see. Do you mind if I ask you a question, Sasaki? Go for it. Why did you betray your team? Sasaki looked down at the ground. A lot of reasons, and all of them are stupid. Could you elaborate? I was jealous of Naruto's power. I felt like he was surpassing me. I wanted to go to Orochimaru to gain power. I felt like Konoha was a weak place where I wouldn't be able to naturally grow. And you pissed me off with your speech telling me to stop going after vengeance. Only recently have I realized how stupid I was. Did your team try to stop you? Try to stop me? Sasaki let out a bitter laugh. I fought Naruto at the Valley of the End and just barely managed to beat him though. I think he was holding back because he didn't want to hurt me. Sakura was at the entrance when I was beginning to leave and she also tried to stop me. I see. I was a stupid kid. I don't think they'll ever truly forgive me. Oh, it seems like they already have. Yeah, it looks like it. But I am sure that they still hold some sort of grudge against me. I know I would in their shoes. I don't know, Sasuke. From what I can tell, that just doesn't seem to be Naruto's nature to hold a grudge. And Sakura always is joking around and laughing with you, disregarding when you fought over the mission. You might be right, Sasaki aloud. Why are you asking me these questions? I want to get to know my team. Every conversation with one of you gives me a picture of your personality and how you'll behave on the team. Kakashi explained. I see. Sasuke managed to say, how do you judge me? There seems to be some issues you need to cover with your friends, but you genuinely want to be their friends now and truly regret your past actions. I find that you're a good kid, Sasuke. I would trust you. Thanks, Sasaki sighed. I wish I could hear it from them, though. Sasaki, they care for you still. You don't need to prove anything to them. They know you will not betray them again. They trust you not to do that again. You think so? Sasaki asked thoughtfully. He shook his head. I'm going to bed and it's your turn to watch us as we sleep. Don't let your guard down. Kakashi nodded. Yes, sir. He joked with a slight frown on his face. Sasaki went to bed on the opposite side of his friends. Okay, guys, put on your forehead protectors for this mission. You're Chunin, not Anbu. Kakashi warned as they walked into the clearing. The three children complied without much resistance at all. They then walked into another clearing. A forest surrounded three sides of the small house, and a lake resided on the side that was not covered in the forest. There was a dirt road leading out of the area to the village that the people living here were from. Of course, this place brought back many memories for three children. Wow, it's almost exactly as I remember it, Naruto reminisced. It brings back memories, that's for sure. Sakura nodded from his left. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei made us practice the tree-walking exercise in these woods. Sasaki merely nodded, proving that he remembered as well. Crap, Naruto nearly shouted. Haku and Zabuza, what the hell are we going to do with them? Sasaki answered, he won't go to Gao and be killed there, so he'll go work in some other country. It does not concern us of what he does. Sasaki is right, Sakura said. Then changing the subject, she asked, shall we go see Tsunami and her family again for the first time? Naruto nodded and led the four of them to the front door and knocked. Sasaki, Sakura, and Kakashi all got into hiding while Naruto did so, just in case. It was basic and ambu training. Nar heard the clicking of the doorknob being messed with and got into a battle-ready position just in case. The door opened very slightly, and a familiar voice called out, "Who is it?" Tsunami, he thought, but quickly snapped out of it and asked, "Is Kaisa home?" She quickly opened the door and jumped at the child and said, "No, you won't take him to Gadu. I'll kill you if I have to resort to it. Just leave, please." She tackled Naruto onto the ground, whose eyes were widened at how scary she seemed to become at that moment. Mental note: don't piss off women. I'm not here to take Kaisa away to Gao. Nar shouted and quickly pushed away the woman. We're here for his mission. Tsunami got up and still looked defensive. Really? She examined the child over and said, "You're from Konoha," she said as she recognized his forehead protector. "That means Kaisa asked something from you all. What was it? We can only say if the one giving the mission allows us to tell you." Nar answered automatically. "Oh, okay. Then." She looked around. "Where's the rest of your team? You did say we're a little bit earlier." Nar lifted his left hand and made a signal. "Here they are within a blur." Kakashi stood behind Naruto, Sasaki to his right, and Sakura to his left. All were in battle-ready positions, holding their kunai out and all. "It's okay, guys. We're in friendly territory for now," Naruto said, immediately ending all the tension his teammates had. They all lowered the kunai and put them away. "Would you people like to come in?" Tsunami asked. "Kaisa will be coming home soon with Inari. We'd appreciate that," Kakashi answered as they four of them followed her into the house. She quickly sat them around a table in the house and quickly made them some tea. "Do you guys want anything to eat while we're in here?" she asked kindly and sat down at the head of the table. Kakashi and Sasaki were on the right side, Naruto and Sakura the left. "No thanks," Sakura answered. "Well, just wait for our client to come here." Tsunami watched as they all sat quietly and occasionally took sips of tea. She was surprised that the three children in front of her would be trained to kill people and such at such a young age. It almost made her sick to her stomach. Were they even prepared for this task, whatever it could be? "Don't worry," Kakashi said. "They look young, but they can easily do anything I can." "Almost," Kakashi mentally said, "but no need to worry her." "How do you know what I was thinking?" she asked, a little nervous to be chatting with a ninja. Kakashi took a sip of his tea and said, "Your face looked worried and you were glancing at all my students." "Ah," she muttered, "they look a little young to be doing this so soon. Shouldn't they be doing things normal children do at their age?" Sasaki got involved at this point and said, "We decided to do this for ourselves. No higher power told us we had to do this, but with our talent, it was highly recommended that we get as strong and skilled as possible as soon as possible." "I see," she sighed. Having a chat with Ninja was harder than she figured it was. She then saw Sakura's hair and destroyed the atmosphere by asking, "Is your hair naturally that color?" "Wow, what?" Sakura stuttered. No one, not even Tsunami, asked that question to her in the last timeline. It was quite a shock to her now. "I mean," Tsunami continued, "I have seen all kinds of hair colors, but I have never seen anyone with pink hair. Don't you think it would limit your abilities to hide from the enemy or something? You should get that back to its original color or something. It's naturally this color," Sakura said. Her world was now upside down from all this information. "What the hell? This hair color can't make it harder to stay stealthy." Naruto looked at the confusion on Sakura's face and decided to come in and say, "I like it. I think it's cute." He crossed his arms and looked away from Tsunami. "Well, yeah, it does, but ninja don't try to look cute, do they?" Tsunami questioned. "Just because we're ninja doesn't mean that we can't do anything non-ninja people can do. It only means we can do it better." Nar said to her. Tsunami had lightning cross her vision. "Oh, better than a non-ninja can." She grabbed Naruto by his collar and said, "Listen here, boy. Just because you're faster, stronger, and probably smarter. He's not," Sasaki said as he took a sip from his tea, enjoying the betrayed look Naruto gave him. "You cannot do anything better than I can." She threw Nar back down and huffed. She walked out of the room, saying, "I'm going to make some more tea." She was back to her sweet self. "Do any of you guys want some?" Everyone just slowly nodded their heads, not wanting her to get angry. "Do you think my hair looks cute, Nar? Or were you just saying that?" Sakura asked, a slight blush on her face. "It looks great," Nar said and patted her on the back. "It's really cute. It's like," continued on. Kakashi and Sasaki glanced at each other, then back to Nar with slight envy in their eyes. "Damn that boy," Kakashi thought as he watched the two flirt with each other. Kakashi's thoughts wandered somewhere else. Back to Tsunami. She was able to get them out of their professional stance and mood by mentioning Sakura's hair. He looked at the two. I'll have to teach them not to get out of the mood no matter what. Kakashi let out a small laugh. His revenge was planned. Okay, Sasaki said after a few moments of silence. I'm going to scout along the area and make sure no one that can be claimed as an enemy makes it within shouting distance. He looked towards Kakashi, who shook his head, allowing the boy to do as he pleased. Tsunami entered right as Sasaki left. Noticing one less member, she was about to ask where the boy went, but knew that it had to be official ninja business. She had learned for her parents to never attempt to anger or question them. Some could be quite harmful. However, she felt somewhat secure around these ones. She put the tea down on the table and sat back down again, not at all enjoying the silence that once more loomed around the room. Outside the building, Sasaki wandered to the edge of the forest surrounding the house and quickly glanced back at the building before he entered. He slowly walked along, not minding at all if an enemy came out. In fact, he'd be glad if someone popped up right now. He'd love to test his strength. Of course, Nara's going to become stronger than me again this time as well. But at least I'm advancing at a much quicker pace this time around. He glanced up and looked around. He heard a small sound coming from a nearby bush. He quickly drew a canny and only sighed when a rabbit appeared. Its brown fur was coated with fresh mud. H must have got stuck in some mud. He simply shook it off and continued to patrol the area. He saw a patch of sunlight beaming down into the woods and decided to climb a tree to get a better view of the area from up there. When he reached the top, he noted that he could see most, if not the entire village from here, and he saw the spot where the great Naruto bridge used to be. That looks really odd without it, he thought to himself as he allowed himself to fall back down to the ground. He twisted in midair and landed on his chakra-enhanced feet, which was meant to deal with the impact, and continued to patrol the forest. He had decided to take a visit into the village to get an idea of the layout of the area. As he entered, he couldn't hide his surprise. The village was actually not in a state of poverty. He shook the thought out of his head. Of course, it isn't. Gao hasn't gained full control of the economy. Again, he climbed up a tree to get a better look of the village he was bordering. Hey kid, what the hell are you doing all the way up there? Sasaki nearly fell out of the tree in shock for a moment before he looked all the way down to the ground. How do you see me all the way up here? Sasaki shouted down. Even though he couldn't see the person, he knew they had to be down there below all the branches and such. Sasaki heard laughing next to him and nearly once more fell down in shock and slight fear. What the hell? He shouted. He quickly regained his composure and grabbed onto the tree before he fell again. Be careful, kid. He looked at the child's headband and said, oh. His eyes hardened and he looked down, seriousness covering his face. You're from Konoha. Sasaki nodded. Yes, that's all I can say. However, we can only explain things to our client and who else he wishes to know. Start explaining why they sent a child to help with this. The man looked slightly angry. Sorry, I can only explain to a man named Kaisa. The man smiled slightly. What if I tell you I am Kaisa? Sasaki examined the man closely. He wore a normal brownish colored vest with no shirt under it and long dark green colored pants. His eyes were a kind of shade of blue that Sasuke believed only Naruto had. His hair was rough and he looked as though he needed to shave. Kaisa, Sasaki asked in surprise. You're a ninja too? The man nodded. Well, kind of, he admitted. I quit shortly after becoming a genin, but I did manage to learn how to use my chakra to walk on trees. That's why I love being in this place so much. There are so many trees to climb on and you're in my favorite spot. Really? He had not known that Kaisa was a ninja. Have you told Tsunami? Kaisa nodded. Yeah, she and Inari know it. Did you say my name? Someone from below shouted. Can I come up with you now, Kaisa? Kaisa looked down and smiled sheepishly. Oh, yeah, I usually take Inari up here with me sometimes. I guess when I noticed someone was up here, I told him to wait down there while I look. His smile faded. Tell me how many of you are here. A group of Tun and an Ambu captain. I think you'll know him. Kakashi. Sasaki smirked as Kaisu a look of surprise at the name of Kakashi. Now bring him up here. I'd like to meet your child again. He added in his mind. Kaizen nodded and worked his way back down to the ground and brought up the kid within a minute. Sasaki looked at the kid and had to force himself not to give off a look of surprise at the happiness Inari was showing in his expression. Inari still wore the hat he had in the previous timeline, but he was trying to be like Kaisa, for he wore a vest of the same color of Kaisa and pants. He looked at Sasaki in surprise and asked, how did he get up here? He's like me. Kaiza simply explained. Inari looked at Sasaki in wonder. Whoa, does that mean he can walk on trees like you? Can he teach me to do it? Where's he from? Is he staying with us? Inari asked in his volley of questions. Kaisu looked thoughtful before saying, yes, no, Konoha, and yes. Inari looked down, sadness evident in his expression. Now, why won't you let anyone teach me to be like you? Because you can fall down and get hurt. He's been trained in this, and I've done it several hundred times before this. Once you're older, I will consider teaching you this technique. Kaisa offered. Inari sighed and nodded his head enthusiastically, and he looked back down at the town in their view. Sasaki looked at Kaisa and watched as the man mouthed at him. Well, go home soon. Sasaki nodded and took the time to appreciate the view of the town he was watching. Tsunami's house, 3 of a kind. Nar shouted, knowing he was the victorious one. Sakura gave him a sympathetic smile and put down her cards. Full house. She could see the look of despair Naruto was giving her. How are you winning so easily? I thought I was lucky with these kinds of things. That is why Jera always let me gamble when I was with him. Naruto sighed and took off his shirt and threw it on the couch next to them. Maybe it's just rubbing off on me. You know I have been close enough for it to happen, she said smiling. They both were in the living room of the household on the floor playing poker with each other. The room was nicely made compared to other parts of the house. It had a rather fireplace, several windows allowing the sun in, and various other miscellaneous things. Kakashi walked in reading his book, but before he left the room, he lowered his book and asked, "What are you two doing now?" Nar grudgingly looked up in his half-state, strip poker. He sighed, lost 3 times so far. Kakashi looked towards the couch where Naruto's discarded shirt, socks, and sandals were. He noticed Sakura had the decency to blush slightly. You too, aren't you a bit young for this? We're really 18 years old. Nar reminded him. Don't worry about it, it's not like we'll do anything. Yeah, Sakura added, our hormones haven't kicked in yet, so you're safe for a few more years. Kakashi wanted to ask them why they were playing strip poker of all things if that was the case, but he knew it was a lost cause. He would be mentally disturbed about this for the coming weeks. He looked at his book but almost threw up at the image of Naruto and Sakura playing strip poker at the age of 9. With Kakashi out of sight, Nar got onto one knee and claimed, "You're cheating. Every time I manage to get a good hand, you're always one step ahead of me." What? Just because you're losing doesn't mean I have to be cheating. She threw her hands up and sighed, but a bunch of cards flew out of the sleeve of her ninja outfit. Oh, Sakura looked at all the cards. What do you know? I was cheating. She giggled, trying to make it not look like a big deal. Nar looked at them and gained a sly grin on his face. Does this mean that you really lost all the previous games? He was rewarded with a punch on the top of his head and his face going through the floor to taste what soil below a household was like. No way, she shouted. Then what was the point of playing strip poker if I am the only one following the damn rules? Nar asked as he managed to get his head out of the floor. Sakura blushed and looked away. Well, I guess we're done here, right? Before Nar could begin to yell some more, a knock came upon the door. The mood that was recently there changed to one of seriousness as Naruto quickly got his outfit back together and Sakura grabbed Toucan out of her pouch, throwing one over to Naruto as he finished getting dressed. Both advanced towards the door while Tsunami walked ahead of them, ready to answer it. The woman looked through the peephole in her door and threw it open. You're finally back, she shouted and gave the man a hug. Is it Kaisa? Nar asked, looking over her shoulder. Tsunami moved over, allowing the 2 ninja to see who it was. It's Tozuna, Tsunami introduced to them. Oh yes. She quickly allowed him into the living room and introduced him with the 2 children and Kakashi. There's also one more, but he's outside doing something right now. The man looked almost exactly how Naruto and Sakura remembered him. He wore a straw hat and glasses that continued to droop down to his nose. He looked incredibly lazy still and wore dirty clothes to prove it. They looked as if they were covered in dirt. And he had an ever so slight smell of alcohol around him. Suna nodded. Well, you all may call me Suna, the super bridge builder. I build all the bridges in this country. You see, all the blood and sweat I put into them. I should really become the super leader of this country someday. Tsunami sighed. Do you really have to say that all the time? Yes, he replied. I don't want my reputation to be ruined because some people don't know of me, child. Even these ninja folks here should know that. Kakashi rested his hand on his forehead and rubbed it out of annoyance. Is Kaisa with you at all? Suna looked thoughtful for a moment before saying, well, you know we did go to town together, but he left with Inari to go off into the woods when we were heading back. Really? Naruto asked. finally happy that they had a lead on where this guy was. Should we go find him now? Exactly. What are you ninja doing here anyways? Suna asked, sounding a little confused. We're here to assist a man you may know as Kaiza. Kakashi answered. Suna's eyes widened in temporary shock and sighed. He turned to Tsunami. Make sure that idiot of yours doesn't get into trouble with this Gao character. I saw him in town preaching to the people that he'd make our economy skyrocket. Of course, I don't believe the fool. He's untrustworthy. Why is that? Tsunami asked his eyes. You can see the greed and all the bad deeds he's done in the past. He looked down and stuffed his hand into his back pocket and quickly produced a bottle which everyone assumed was full of alcohol. Well, any of you guys care for a drink? Nar and Sakura shook their heads. Kakashi held out his tea glass from earlier and said, please to the rim. Suna smiled and filled it up. I think I could get to like you. Yep, everyone could tell Kakashi was smiling behind his mask. Anything to get rid of these mental images. He cried out within his mind. Kakashi-sensei drinking during a mission is prohibited. It's one of the most basic rules in the book. Sakura shouted at the man. Nar glanced at her. You know, you're probably the only person who even reads the books. Tsunami quickly diffused the situation. Not now, people. No drinking within my household when we have guests. Especially when most of the guests are children below the age of 10. She grabbed the bottle of alcohol and hid it from Suna's view, which made the man fall to the ground, screaming about random things, and most of the ninja in the room thinking he was completely insane. Before things could proceed in this direction, there was once more a knock on the door. Tuna got up and walked to it. Only Kakashi got up to follow the man as he opened the door. When the door opened, 3 men stood out there, all having an equally evil grin on their face, and they all had their hands gripped on their katana. We here for Kaisa, is he home? The one in front of the other 2 asked. The one in front was obviously the smallest. He had on a winter hat that covered most of his hair besides a few brown specks that got through, and he wore really baggy clothing. The one on the man's left was much taller and wore no shirt and had very little hair. His pants had all kinds of knives and swords attached to it. The last man was the most normal looking. He wore glasses and gave Suna a sympathetic smile, his green eyes reflecting kindness. He was easily the opposite of his 2 companions. No, goodbye, Suna said suddenly, very sober. Before the door was able to close, the tallest of the men reached his arm forward and grabbed the edge of the door and held it open again. Then don't mind as we come in and wait. The 3 walked in and followed Suna as he led them to the kitchen away from the living room where the rest of the people were. He didn't want these 3, who he was sure were working for Gadu, to know that Konoha was helping them. Kakashi had made several signs with his hands to Naruto and Sakura. They all used a quick jutsu to become camouflaged with the scenery, and they spied on the conversation. Tsunami walked in with Suna with their newly acquired guest. What do you need with Kaiza? Tsunami asked, wary of the swords they all had. Gao just wants to do some business with him. That's all the smallest of the 3 said, not diminishing the threatening pose they all stood in. We promise we're not here to do any harm. The man with glasses said kindly, Gedu isn't the kind to do those kinds of horrible things. Tsunami, feeling the most relaxed near him, stayed by his side. If she could, she would run out and get away from here. But 2 factors stopped her from doing so. First of all, it would make the men suspicious. And secondly, she had 3 ninja nearby who would assist her and Suna if needed. Well, Suna looked around unsure if to say this. Would you fellows like something to drink? Far from the household in the forest. It was about 5 or 6 in the afternoon now. The sun was still up in the sky, but the light it was emitting wasn't near as strong it was just a few hours ago. The 3 were still up in the trees simply chatting about random things. And finally, they decided it was time to go. We should head back now. Tuna should be there, Kaisa said as he slowly began to his climb down the tree with Inari clinging onto him. Sasaki nodded and followed the man on his way down. Lead the way. Sasaki motioned with his hands forward. Inari quickly ran forth, not bothering to look back at the other 2, but he knew to keep in sight of Kaisa so he'd be spared from Tsunami's wrath. Sasaki and Kaisa walked side by side. It was quite an odd sight. The child wore black clothes and stood up to Kaisa's waist, but walked as though he had seen many hardships in his young life, which was only partly true. Kaizen noted this, but decided not to say anything to the child. So, Sasuke was it? Yes, Sasuke replied, not saying anything more. You do know what the mission I assigned for you to do was right? Kaisa asked uncertainly. Sasaki sighed. Listen, I look young, but I have signed up to do this kind of thing. My squad, which mostly is my age besides our sensei, knows what we're here to do. We're going to be killing a future tyrant of this country, someone who'd use the economy for only his benefits and will do anything to quell any signs of rebellion. You're much wiser than you look. Kaisa noted. Sasaki nodded. I get that a lot since I have come back. He mentally noted. I wonder if we're being too open with our intellect. It's a topic I'll have to keep in mind. Sasuke continued to think to himself. Suddenly, Sasaki heard a rush of leaves behind him. He looked at Kaisa, who also noticed it. Tell Inari to go ahead. Sasaki whispered. Kaisa nodded and shouted. Inari, go ahead and tell Tsunami that we're coming home. I'm sure she's very worried right now. Inari looked over and smiled. Okay, see you there, Kaisa. He then ran ahead without any other protest at all. Sasaki grabbed a kunai out and continued walking as he quickly flipped it upside down and had the blade hidden from view of the enemy. Who's there? Kaisa shouted out, his voice still strong, not at all faltered. When a large group of people walked out of the forest surrounding them, they can conceal their numbers. Well, Kaisa noted quickly. Sasaki looked around and quickly looked back at Kaisa. If you're going to try to fight us, at least say something first. One of the men walked forth. Kaisa, leave your kid, Inari here and come with us. Sasaki smirked, so they thought he was Inari. They must have not seen the child run away as they closed in and assumed that he was the child. This can be used to our advantage. What do you want with me? Kaisa said his chain of thought was close to Sasaki as he kneeled down and held his hands over Sasaki like a protective parent would do. One of the multiple men came out of hiding and said, don't worry. Well, take real good care of your child there. You just come with us to see Gao and all will go like it normally is. Getu is a tyrant. No way am I going to go to him. He'll have to come to me so I can kick his. Kaisa said, getting up off the ground. After realizing what he said wasn't such a wise idea, he quickly got ready to fight. I need to learn to keep my mouth closed. Sasaki stood still looking around the area. 910-11-12-13 Kaisa. Sasaki got the attention of the man. I'm counting 14 of them. I don't know how strong they are, but they shouldn't be too bad. If my memory serves me correctly, he thought, that's too many, Kaisa said, his will faltering slightly. Sasaki walked forward and called out, please take me instead. I don't want you to hurt him. He tried to act as Inari would, but couldn't bring enough emotion into it. The enemy, however, bought it. Oh, that might be good. One of them called out. No, our mission was to take Kaisa, not the damn brat he hangs out with all the time. Get the man. Yeah, Sasuke sighed. This wasn't going to work. Okay, can I perform one trick for all of you? He shouted. Not waiting a single second, he put his hands together and focused as much of his chakra into them as he could. Once he got enough, it exploded outward, sending a shock wave, hopefully far enough so his partners could sense it and come to his aid. What? One of the men shouted. That kid, he's a ninja. I hear Gao has a large bounty on them. Several charged at the kid, not even wondering why a ninja was with Kaiser or what village he was from. Sasaki quickly rolled away from Kaisa, being sure the fighting was a decent bit away from the man. Once he got up and quickly formed the several seals he has always loved to perform, Kaden Guakaku no Jutsu. He shouted and blew fire towards the oncoming enemy. Most got out of the way, but one was caught in it and was burning, probably to death. He quickly got his hidden kunai and threw it at the nearly guy, piercing right through his upper arm, causing him to drop his sword and run away in fear. The others saw the display, but didn't falter in their advance. One of the larger men grabbed a katana and shouted to the others, get Kaisa. I'll get this kid. The man suddenly pulled out another katana dual-wielding them. Sasaki looked at the large man, betraying no emotion on his face. I hope help comes soon. He thought as the man charged at him. He closed his eyes and brought up a certain amount of chakra to them. He continued to focus until he felt the familiar power he loved to use so much. He reopened his eyes and a grin came to his face as his sharing was shown. It only had 2 dots, but it would evolve. The burning sensation they brought to him only months ago was gone. Ready? Sasaki asked, getting into his fighting stance. The man paid no heed to the red eyes, figuring it was only a technique meant to intimidate him. Ha, poor child. I'll cut off your head and give it to Gadu. With that, they both ran at each other. The man swung one of his 2 swords down and fast and hard as he could ride where Sasaki was standing. Sasaki easily managed to dodge it, for he could see it slowed down and was fast enough to get out of the way with all the training he had done. When the blade hit the ground, it sent dirt and grass in all directions in a small explosion. Where'd that damn brat go? He looked around, astonished that the kid got out of the path of his sword. Up here, the man looked up and saw Sasaki hanging upside down from a branch. He jumped down and tried to punch the man right in the face, but the other blade came in a sweeping motion, nearly hitting him. Sasaki barely managed to twist in the air to dodge it and hit the ground. He then pulled out 2 kunai and some string from his pouch. I haven't used this in a long time. He threw both kana at the man who easily dodged both of them. Ha! At this rate, I'll kill you. The man shouted, but was taken aback when suddenly he flew backwards and was pinned against the tree right behind him. Sasaki had thrown more than 2 kunai, but the others were hidden below the other 2 within the shadow of the original ones. With that, he managed to tie the strings on all of them and tangle the man into the mess he was currently in. Sasaki quickly began to make seals for the same technique earlier. Goodbye, he mentally said as he finished the seals and blew fire at the man, burning him to a crisp. The scream echoed throughout the forest, and he was sure that the town must have heard that one. Kaiza, Sasaki shouted as he turned to see he was tied up and wounded slightly. He noticed 3 downed men. However, at least Kaiza didn't go down without a fight. Sasaki ran over towards him and kicked the man tying the last knot on the ropes. Damn, that brat killed Koga. He was one of our best guys. One of the many shouted and Sasaki prepared for the fight. Suddenly, he twisted around and stopped a katana from nearly decapitating him. It hit his wrist guard, and he quickly ran forth and kicked the man away. Suddenly, a hand came up from the ground and pulled him under until only his head was showing. What the? He shouted as he went under. Kaisa shot him a worried glance as a man came up from under the ground. A slash was on his headband, making him an automatic missing nin. His headband protector showed that he was from the Mist Village. So, this is the brat that was causing so much trouble. Hey, you all should just die and be over with it if he was doing so much damage to you all. He wore a sleeveless black shirt and a mask portraying a bull. He was well built and had 2 short blades on his back. His pants were the same back color as his shirt and had multiple pockets. From one of them, he produced an explosive tag. You know what this is, right, kid? He noticed his headband. Someone from Konoha. Of course, you know what it is then. Too bad you'll have to die at such a young age. He knelt it down and was about to post it on Sasuke's head when a kunai flew by and pinned the note several yards away on a tree. Who's there? The missing nin shouted out. Suddenly, 2 people dropped from the trees. Both wore black. One had blonde hair while the other hair pink. Sasaki sighed in relief. You guys, you definitely took long enough. Sorry, Sasuke. We had some visitors at base we had to take care of as well. Sakura said apologetically. Ah, Sasuke, you couldn't handle this many by yourself. Nar mocked, but became serious again. What rank would you put all of them at? Sasaki analyzed the situation in his head quickly. All of them are at least genin rank in skill besides this guy. He nodded his head towards the one nearby. He is probably lower Junin rank. Besides that, this should be easy for both of you. Sakura smiled and grabbed some gloves out of her canny pouch. This will allow us to test where our skill lies right now. Nar nodded and cracked his knuckles. Yep, both ran at the crowd who was not prepared for the maneuver. Nar quickly dispatched several people quickly by jumping in the air right below the sun. So it blinded the enemy when they looked up. At that moment, he quickly threw kana at their necks, ending their lives quickly. Sakura took a much more physical approach. She ran at them, making them all laugh. You think a little girl like you can do anything? One shouted, but he was silenced when a powered punch from Sakura hit him directly in the neck, making him see black instantly. She twisted around and kicked another man in the face, probably ending his life, and turned once more and punched another person's blade in 2. Nar landed right next to her inside. I thought this would help us gain skill. Yeah, Sakura sighed. Anyway, now it's just him. She pointed at the missing nin. One could tell he glared at her as he said, What? I still have a few men with me. He glanced at both sides and noticed the remaining people living were running for their lives. You cowards, he shouted at them. When they continued to run, he threw shuriken at them, killing them off quickly. You kill your own allies because they're smarter than you. Naruto asked. You probably deserve to die since you want to fight us now. The missing nin grabbed Kaiza by his collar and laughed. Hey, who said I would play fair? He forced the man up and put one of his short swords at his throat. Now go or Kaiza will die. That's Kaiza, Nar said, shock evident in his voice. Sakura and Nar both were on guard but lowered it when they found no way to counter this. Good, the missing nin said. Suddenly, he felt himself being stabbed from the back. Nerd stood there, a cold glare on his face. The Naruto lowering his guard in front of the man puffed into smoke. Not longer than a few seconds passed when the man Nar stabbed suddenly poofed and a log replaced his body. Nar was about to say something when he suddenly felt a blade go through him from behind. Nar! Sakura shouted out of shock. The expression Nar had on was full of pain as blood slowly made its way out of his mouth. There we go, the missing nin said and pulled his blade out. But that instant, Naruto turned to smoke, and he felt his neck being sliced open by the real Nar. If you're wondering, Naruto said, it's Cage Bunchan. The missing nin fell to the ground attempting to gasp for breath while Sakura went and untied Kaisa, and both of them got Sasuke out of the ground. Afterwards, all of them stood above the missing nin. His head motioned towards Naruto and said, you know, he coughed. Getu will hire stronger ninja when I get this report to him. What? You're going to die right here. Nar shook his head. You shouldn't resist. You'll die faster. Sasaki deactivated his Sharingan and said, Nar, don't waste your breath. This one is a cage bunch as well. Suddenly, the man smiled and puffed into smoke. Damn, he's going to let Gao know that we're here to kill him. Sakura shouted. She looked at all around and made sure that he was not in their area. We have to get to base now. Naruto and Sasaki nodded and picked Kaisa off the ground and helped him walk slightly. You children, do you have no regret for killing? Nar looked down. In the life of a ninja, you must never show your feelings in or out of battle. But I'm not like others. He looked up. Yes, I admit that I regret killing people, but I always think that since I killed them, they won't kill other people. So by doing this, I am actually saving people. Sakura nodded to his logic. And when they are going to kill an ally, you will kill them to make sure the rest of the team lives. With that, they walked home. Kaisa noted the look of guilt barely evident on Naruto and Sakura's faces, and the lack of it on Sasake's. He'd have to tell Inari not to get close to these children. So guys, what do you think about this Naruto story? Tell me your opinion in the comments. And if you want more Naruto What If stories, make sure to subscribe to Universe of Naruto. Thanks for watching.
Okay, now we're talking.